Hey, what's up everyone? James here. This video is a full story video of the Skybound Transformers series so far, volume 1 to 3, covering the Transformers' arrival on Earth to the Decepticon Civil War. One thing I want to mention here is there will be a part in this video where I'll be covering an Energon universe special story that wasn't a part of the Transformers run that focuses on Megatron. If you are new here, you may be confused about how he ended up in the particular predicament you'll find him in that issue. The Cobra Commander series gives the backstory for that, so I'll have a link to the playlist of that series below. I'll also have a link to the full story video of the origins of the Energon universe that covers just the first volume of the Transformers, the entire series of Duke Cobra Commander, and the first volume of Void Rivals. With that being said, I hope you enjoy the video. Now let's roll out into this story. What's up everyone, James here, and I am super excited because today I am covering Skybound's Transformers issue 1 that just recently dropped. For those of you who haven't read this issue yet, this video is going to blow your minds. However, I highly recommend picking up your own copy because this is written and drawn by Daniel Warren Johnson, and the writing, artwork, and colors done by Mike Spencer is absolutely incredible. Okay, so this begins with a few flashbacks of the Transformers crash landing on Earth, Sparkplug with Wiki's flashbacks of the Vietnam War, and a flashback of a space shuttle launching. That flashback in particular, we're going to return to in a second. But from here, we go to Spike finding Sparkplug in a Veterans of Foreign Wars bar after searching for him everywhere. At the same time, a bar patron is telling the bartender Danny that he saw a red and white fighter jet come down from space. Now, if you know who this fighter jet is, right now pause this video and comment below. Be the first one to do it. Now, through this conversation between Spike and Sparkplug, we learn he tries to initially lie to Spike, telling him that he was running errands and hasn't been at the bar long, until Danny reveals he's been there all day. Now, why Sparkplug is at the bar drinking all day? Part of it could be he doesn't want to think about the trauma and loss he endured during the Vietnam War, but what seems to be a bigger part of his drinking, and the real driving indicator here, is what we learn in his and Spike's conversation, is he lost a son. Just like I surmised in my preview video of this issue, Jimmy, who they're talking about, is Spike's brother. It seems like his death has caused a huge rift in their relationship, where one of them wants to remember Jimmy and the other one wants to forget about him because the pain is just too much to endure. We quickly learn this when Spike tells Sparkplug that he's going to check out the full moon tonight on top of Hangar's Rock with Carly, and admits this is his way of remembering his brother. Sparkplug's response to this is, "Why would you want to remember? It's better to just forget it all." Spike replies, "Is that how you're going to live? Just pretending that he didn't exist? I'm not gonna end up like him, Dad." Now, this reveals yet another cause of the rift in their relationship. I'm kind of jumping ahead here because this will be revealed later during a conversation with Carly, but as we learned in the preview video, Spike wants to become an astronaut. Now, you may be asking yourself, why would that be a problem? Well, remember that flashback of the shuttle launching, and then we see that same shuttle during Spike and Sparkplug's conversation explode? I'm willing to bet that we'll eventually learn Jimmy was an astronaut and died in that failed launch. I think we'll also learn eventually Spike's reason to become an astronaut is not only to pay respect and homage to Jimmy, but also prove to his father that he won't meet the same fate. Now, Davey, Sparkplug's best friend and co-worker, interrupts their conversation, offering to give Sparkplug a ride to work. Spike and Sparkplug's conversation comes to an end with Sparkplug telling Spike to grow up, and Spike responding, not if it means he'll end up like him. As Davey drives off, waiting outside for Spike is Carly with her awesome looking van here that has a mural of a wizard inspired by the animated version of Gandalf, a warrior inspired by Conan the Barbarian, and a castle and a dragon. I tried to check and see if the castle and the dragon were inspired by anything, but it seems like they just are what they are. Sometime later, Carly and Spike arrive at Hangar's Rock. Now, in the original animated series, this mountain was called Mount St. Hilary, so it seems like Johnson renamed it. Now, this is where we get into a few of the images we covered in the preview video. But don't worry, for those of you new here, I'm still going to cover them. As Spike and Carly are walking up the mountain, through their conversation we learn Spike was accepted at Berkeley University, but hasn't told Sparkplug yet. Carly, who is an airbrush artist, has been looking at art schools, but financially she doesn't know if she and her father can make it work. For those of you who may not know this, Carly, like Sparkplug and Spike, is originally from the 80s Transformers series. I really like that Johnson is establishing her and Spike's relationship right from the beginning. Even though she has struggles of her own, she sees Spike's family struggle and tells him how sorry she is that he's going through this. As the pair share this intimate moment, suddenly an earthquake occurs and they both fall through the mountain and end up in the Autobots' Ark. They explore the ship and find the main control room where they discover all the unconscious bodies of the Transformers. At that moment, who flies into the Ark, I call this, is Jetfire. So it seems like after being awakened by Darak and Solila in Void Rivals, instead of going to Cybertron like we thought he would, Jetfire has come to Earth. But what's unclear here is how he knew the Transformers were on Earth and how he tracked their position. But anyways, Jetfire mentions he used most of his Energon to trigger the earthquake in order to free the Ark from the mountain trap it was in. He activates Teletran 1 and uploads new forms that are Earth vehicles he's analyzed for the Transformers. Now this is starkly different from the original show, where a volcanic eruption unearthed the Ark and activated Teletran 1. Teletran 1 sent a sky probe to scan Earth's vehicles and gave the Transformers new forms. Now the first spot that's repaired and reactivated is Starscream. Jetfire says, "My old friend, I have not seen you in centuries." This is weird, because for those of you who've been following Void Rivals, he mentioned he's been gone for millions of years. So there's a little bit of an inconsistency there. Starscream thanks Jetfire for waking him, and says, "I'm glad you've picked the right side." He then blasts the face off of Bumblebee's body. Literally like that. This shocks Jetfire, because remember, he's unaware that a civil war has been going on Cybertron. Starscream tells him they've been at war for the past 100 years. Now Jetfire tries to stop Starscream from causing further damage, but Starscream quickly turns his weapon on his old friend and blasts Jetfire just like that, no hesitation. He tells Jetfire that the Autobot marking is a sign of true evil. Just as Starscream is about to blast his next unconscious target, Jazz, out of nowhere, Optimus Prime, now awakened, clothesline Starscream, and the can of whoop ass isn't over. Optimus then hits him with a German suplex, breaking his back, son. Spike and Carly try to use the chaos to escape, but they end up coming face to face with Optimus. He asks them what they are, and Spike introduces himself. Their meeting, though, doesn't last long, because Starscream starts to unleash an array of blaster fire towards them. Luckily, though, Ratchet intervenes, hitting Starscream with a big boot to the face. I'm starting to think Daniel Warren Johnson is a wrestling fan. Ratchet helps Optimus to his feet, but the reunion has to wait because Starscream's fellow Seeker arrives, Skywarp. He fires upon them both. Starscream quickly realizes that Teletran 1 is reconstructing them randomly, and orders Skywarp to bring all the Decepticons closer to it. At the same time, Optimus realizes the Decepticons are about to outnumber him and Ratchet. He orders Ratchet to load all the Autobots into his trailer while he buys him time. He runs for his ion blaster, but at that moment, my boy, Soundwave activates and he immediately fires upon Optimus, knocking him and his blaster. As he's recovering from the blast and the flames from it surround him, Optimus sees through them and notices Bumblebee's body. He sees the damage Starscream has done and for a moment falls into despair, holding his dear friend in his arms. This explains why Bumblebee isn't a part of the initial roster. He's fallen. Suddenly, Optimus is attacked by Starscream and Ravage. As he is being attacked by them both, he tries reaching for his ion blaster. Spike, seeing all this, runs into the fray. He pushes Optimus's blaster and tells Carly to help. They both manage to get it within Prime's reach. He then blasts Ravage off of him. knocks back Starscream and quickly dodges Skywarp's attack. Optimus then sees Teletran 1 about to reactivate even more Decepticons, Thundercracker and Reflector. Left with no choice, he says, "I'm sorry, Teletran, we are outnumbered and outgunned." He fires at Teletran 1, completely destroying it. Optimus grabs Spike and Carly and runs toward Ratchet as Teletran 1 explodes. Starscream orders Soundwave and Thundercracker to attack, but they both inform him their Energon reserves are low. Optimus and Ratchet transform and roll out of the Ark. However, Starscream and Skywarp begin the hunt. At that moment, Jetfire regains consciousness. He sees the Seekers attacking the fleeing Autobots, and though he is severely injured, he still flies to the Autobots' aid. Now, even though he wishes he didn't have to, he fires at Starscream and Skywarp. Unfortunately, the blow he landed on them doesn't slow them down, because Starscream quickly fires back, fatally wounding Jetfire. Starscream orders Skywarp to continue the pursuit of the Autobots, but Skywarp reminds him his Energon reserves are critically low. So for the moment, the Decepticons are forced to retreat. Starscream yells at Optimus in frustration, saying, "Sleep with one eye open, Optimus. I am coming for you." Later, Spike leads the Autobots to this abandoned quarry he and his brother used to hang out at. Optimus goes to Jetfire, and this is where we learn why Jetfire was exploring the universe. Jetfire asks Optimus for forgiveness and tells him he's been gone for centuries and had no idea about the war and didn't know he was the new Prime. Optimus mentions to Jetfire he remembers the day he left Cybertron and that much has changed since he left, and all for the worse. Optimus tries to use the Matrix of Leadership to save Jetfire, but Ratchet informs him the Matrix can only heal, it cannot stop death. Jetfire apologizes, swearing he didn't know. Optimus says, "You have nothing to apologize for, old friend. You have done well." Jetfire replies, "No, I have not. I have searched for centuries for healing for our home and found nothing." He asks Optimus if there's any hope for Cybertron, and Optimus answers, "I do not know." Jetfire's dying words are, "I have failed my mission. Cybertron will die. Everything will die." Back on the Ark, Soundwave analyzes the damage to Teletran 1 and explains to Starscream that the damage is beyond their current capabilities of repair. They need more Energon and raw materials to bring it back online. That Laserbeak, who he sent out earlier, has already sent back coordinates of possible sources of Energon. He points out to Starscream he is the only one amongst them with enough Energon to harvest the resources they need. Now, just when he's about to say it's what Megatron would have wanted, Starscream interrupts him, saying, "Do not say his name. I am the leader of the Decepticons now." Didn't I tell you all he was gonna say this? The next day, as Sparkplug and Davey are ending their overnight shift, Davey tries to talk to Sparkplug about his relationship with Spike and the hardships he's had to endure. However, Sparkplug doesn't want to hear it. He snaps at Davey. Their conversation, though, is interrupted by Starscream, who is destroying the plant they work at. He is gathering the materials that the Decepticons need. Now, he's pissed off and complaining about how he has to do all this by himself. Davey tries to run to his car and escape, while Sparkplug decides to hide inside the plant. Once Starscream notices him, he grabs Davey and points out how fragile humans are. He then squishes Davey's body, and that's the end of Davey, and that's the end of Skybound Transformers issue 1. What's up, everyone? James here, and what's also finally here is the next issue of Skybound Transformers, and it's amazing. To be honest, this issue alone proves to me this Transformers series is in the right hands. As always, link to the previous video is right here and in a pinned comment below. But before we get into today's video, a few of you commented on the last video wondering what time period does this exactly take place. I was going to talk about this in the last video, but it was taking too long to get into the action. So the last issue suggests that this takes place in the 80s, like in the original cartoon series, because the explosion of the space shuttle we believe Spike's brother Jimmy died in is reminiscent of the Space Shuttle Challenge disaster that took place in 1986 in Cape Canaveral, Florida, where a NASA space shuttle, 73 seconds into its launch, broke apart, killing all the crew on board. It became the first ever accident involving an American spacecraft while in flight. I mean, for me, Spike's Marty McFly vest was enough evidence to me that this took place in the 80s. Like, come on, who wears vests anymore? Honestly. Anyways, this issue opens up with Optimus Prime walking through a forest, admiring the beauty of Earth, the sun, plant life, and the animals. However, he stops when he hears a crunch beneath his feet. Optimus accidentally killed a doe. He cradles its body and becomes filled with remorse. Spike, watching, approaches, assuring him it was an accident. Optimus Prime tells him he had no idea how fragile Earth was, that where he's from, everything is metal, so the ground doesn't shake when he walks, or leave marks where he treads. I absolutely love this because this is something that doesn't get considered or even showcased in any of the Transformers animated series or movies I've seen. Just how would the Transformers react to Earth, a world so vastly different from their own, filled with organic life? But more importantly, how would the Earth react to such highly advanced mechanical beings? Spike notices Optimus is saddened by what he's done and decides to change the subject. He asks Optimus about his name, and just like any of us, if we had the opportunity, tells him how cool his name is. Optimus informs Spike that the name Prime was passed down to him from the previous leader. It signifies his role in the Autobot hierarchy, and admits he didn't come up with the name, even though he wishes he did. He asks Spike where his name came from, and Spike answers his mom growing up used to call him Spiky because his hair always spiked up. What's interesting is Optimus asks what is a mom, because these are terms foreign to him. But when Spike asks if he knows what a family is, Optimus responds that that is a concept he knows very well. From a distance, they see the Ark, and Spike asks Optimus where he comes from. We then see this amazing image of Cybertron. Optimus answers he comes from Cybertron, a beautiful planet in its own way. Before he came into being, there was peace. However, he only got to experience it for a short time before the war started. He goes on to explain how Cybertronians who were consumed by greed and power rose up, the Decepticons. For 2 centuries, the Autobots have been battling them, but in time, their numbers dwindled so badly that they had no choice but to abandon it. Their goal was to scour the galaxy and find a new way to retake Cybertron. However, during their escape, the most powerful of the Decepticons tried to stop them. Somehow, they ended up losing control of their ship. The last thing Prime remembers seeing is Earth right before they entered its atmosphere. I love that we finally see Megatron, and this image of him strangling Optimus is great. What's an inconsistency here is in the last issue, Starscream said that they've been at war for the past 100 years, and in this issue, Optimus says 200. Now, how the Transformers ended up on Earth is similar in some ways to the G1 cartoon's first episode, More Than Meets the Eye, where in the episode, the reason why the Autobots left Cybertron was to search for more Energon elsewhere. The Decepticons learned of their plans and pursued them. They were able to intercept and board the Autobot ship. A fight broke out and the Autobots ended up losing control of the ship and crash landing on Earth. This is further evidence Daniel Warren Johnson is heavily inspired by the original cartoon. But that's not the coolest or most important thing here. The most important thing here is now we know for a fact Megatron was on board the Ark before it crash landed. Now this is my theory, hear me out here. I bet Starscream took that opportunity when Megatron was strangling Optimus and the rest of the Decepticons were distracted to take him out. And Megatron ended up being launched out of the ship right when the Ark was entering Earth's atmosphere, so he crash landed elsewhere. Comment below and let me know what you all think about it. Make sure you use the hashtag #WhereIsMegatron. Optimus thanks Spike for helping him during the battle, admitting he's not sure they would have escaped without him. Spike apologizes, offering his condolences for Bumblebee. Suddenly, Cliffjumper appears, having just been restored by Ratchet, and we'll see how Ratchet did that in a bit. I like that Cliffjumper refers to himself as the Red Demon. He tells Optimus that Ratchet has filled him in on everything that's transpired so far. What's funny here is as soon as Cliffjumper sees Spike, he freaks out and asks Optimus what is he. Optimus answers that Spike is a human, the species that live on Earth. Spike offers a handshake introducing himself, and Cliffjumper's just like, "Too soon, man," and it compares Spike to a turbo rat. They're a form of Cybertron wildlife that first appeared in IDW's Transformers vs. G.I. Joe series. Carly pops up and Cliffjumper freaks out even more, but Carly calms him down by pointing out she can't hurt him, and that she's the one who should be really freaked out since he's a giant freaking robot from space that can easily squish her. She offers a handshake and Cliffjumper shakes it. Back in the quarry, Ratchet is currently reconstructing Wheeljack. He's able to do this by using Optimus's tactical trailer and the leftover metals in the quarry. Optimus asks how long will it be until all the Autobots are restored. Ratchet answers that's the problem. He used the last bit of Energon to fix Cliffjumper. He needs a massive amount to bring the rest of the Autobots back. Optimus offers using the Matrix of Leadership's power to restore them. But Ratchet advises against this since the Matrix is tied to his spark, that the risk is too great. If they lose him, they lose everything. Meanwhile, at the power plant after Starscream's attack, Sparkplug and the plant manager here are reporting to the police what happened. But to no surprise, the police officer doesn't believe a giant robot caused this damage at the plant, and kind of brushes them off, saying he'll call it in and the detectives will investigate. A freaked out Sparkplug tells him they don't need detectives, they need the damn army, and orders the officer to get them on the horn. At that moment, out of nowhere, Skywarp drops in, crushing the cops' patrol car. The chaos begins. The rest of the Decepticons arrive. Soundwave is carrying a converter he stole from the Ark. He ejects Rumble to begin constructing an energy transfer module. He plans to use this mechanism to convert the power from the plant into Energon. The police officer here just starts opening fire at the Decepticons, and Sparkplug warns him they are too powerful. But it is too late. Starscream stomps on the police officer, squishing his body. Starscream is vicious, and let me tell y'all something. That isn't even the most brutal kill he commits in this issue. The Decepticons activate the converter, and it successfully works. As that's going on, this pilot, whose call sign is Frosting, receives a transmission from Central Command of possible bogeys and requests him to intercept. Frosting tells his passenger his ride to the airbase will have to wait. Now the issue keeps the identity of this passenger hidden until a bit later. I'm just going to tell you guys now, his passenger is Duke, and if the thumbnail wasn't evidence enough, you know now. Duke says, "All good, Frosting, turn and burn, baby." At the same time, Soundwave intercepts that transmission Frosting received and informs Starscream. After hearing this, Starscream is delighted that the humans that he calls squishies are planning to fight back, and he wants to see it. He transforms and flies to intercept them. Once Starscream and Frosting see each other, Frosting orders Starscream to respond over comms. And he does respond by unleashing a wave of blaster fire on him and Duke. Luckily, Frosting quickly maneuvers out of his firing range. This is awesome. It's like a scene out of Top Gun. The dogfight is incredible. Duke warns Frosting that Starscream is getting a lock on them. Frosting responds by hitting a Cobra maneuver, backflipping his F-15 and ending up right behind Starscream. As he locks on, ready to fire at him, Starscream transforms and slaps Frosting's F-15 right out of his face. The jet spirals, heading in for a crash landing. Frosting is able to successfully eject himself and Duke. However, after they eject, waiting for them is Starscream. He freaking thunderclaps Frosting, crushing his body in his hands. This is the most brutal kill of the year, my god. He then goes after Duke, but he's not going down easily. He releases his parachute and suddenly activates his jetpack. He dodges Starscream's attack, whips out a flare gun, and fires it right into his optic. He uses the distraction to escape, and Starscream doesn't pursue him. Back at the plant, Sparkplug tries to escape the chaos by taking one of the other patrol cars there, but Skywarp captures him. Fortunately for Sparkplug, Frosting's jet lands right on top of the Decepticons, allowing him to escape. At that moment, Carly, Spike, and the Autobots see the explosion from a distance. Spike and Carly point out it's the power plant. Cliffjumper, using his binoculars, informs them it's the Decepticons attacking. Optimus explains to Carly and Spike that the Decepticons have made their move. They'll take Energon from anywhere by force. Ratchet mentions that they need to fight energy sources first before they fight the Decepticons. but Optimus refuses to wait because he doesn't want to let the Decepticons continue to destroy the planet. He says, "We have no choice, Ratchet. I brought our war to this beautiful place, even if by accident. It is my duty now to defend it." Optimus orders Cliffjumper to stay with Ratchet and protect the rest of the unconscious Autobots. Spike tells Optimus he needs to go. Initially, Optimus refuses, saying it's too dangerous, but when Spike uses the word family, he reluctantly agrees. Carly tries to talk Spike out of it, but Spike argues that if it was his brother Jimmy, he'd go to his dad without thinking, and he's going to do the same thing. Carly mentions that they should both just go home because their parents might already be there. Spike refuses, and Optimus and Spike drive off. Carly decides she's not staying there and waiting. She's going home to find her parents. On her way home, unbeknownst to her, Laserbeak has spotted her and ends up following her. Meanwhile, Sparkplug makes it back home and opens up his old military case. Later, Carly makes it home and is surprised to see Sparkplug in her home, dressed in his old army fatigues and armed to the teeth with several guns and a belt of grenades. He tells her he just got there. When Carly asks, "Where's my dad?" Sparkplug answers, "They killed Davey. They killed your dad." My god, this is the most action-packed issue of Skybound Transformers so far. What's up, Beyonders? James here, and make sure to hit that like button if you're excited to get into this newest issue. I mean, you should be, because Optimus Prime and Cliffjumper are rolling out a can of whoop ass. So we pick up right where we left off, with Carly learning her dad Davey was killed by a giant robot. After Sparkplug describes it to her, Carly realizes it was Starscream who killed her father. Just when she's about to explain that she and Spike saw the Transformers wake up, at that moment, Laserbeak comes crashing through her house. Sparkplug starts firing off at him, but Laserbeak uses his beak to grab him and toss him through the house. Just when Laserbeak turns his attention to Carly, out of nowhere, Cliffjumper the Red Demon bursts into the house, tackling Laserbeak. He then hits Laserbeak with a jumping roundhouse kick like Donnie Yen right to his face. Like, damn, this was awesome. Cliffjumper checks up on Carly, but Sparkplug, viewing him as an enemy, fires off his shotgun right into Cliffjumper's head. Now, it doesn't damage him, but the explosive impact from the blast blows Cliffjumper outside of the house. I still think that shouldn't be possible, but hey, that's comics for you. Sparkplug grabs Carly and leaves in the police car. Meanwhile, back at the Ark, Starscream is annoyed and pissed that Soundwave still hasn't been able to get Teletran 1 back up and running. I like that we see Soundwave is still cradling Ravage, who is probably in stasis. I don't think he's dead, but this shows he cares a lot about his mini cassettes. Soundwave explains to Starscream that they have all the Energon they need. The raw materials of Earth lack the advanced compound structure, though, needed to fix the Cybertronian tech. That it is possible other materials on Earth could come close, but they haven't sought it out. Just when he's about to say what Megatron would have done, Starscream straight up pimp slaps Soundwave. Now, some of you know Soundwave is my boy, so I think he shouldn't have let Starscream slide with that, because in a knockdown, drag out fight, Soundwave is beating the brakes off of Starscream. Yeah, I said it. Suddenly, Soundwave receives a message from Laserbeak about Cliffjumper's attack, and Starscream orders Skywarp to leave and handle it. Sparkplug takes Carly to the VFW because the radio, internet, and phones aren't working. He assumes that the giant robots are using some sort of jamming tech, so since they can't call for help, he's come to the one place where he can gather some reinforcements, and his veteran buddies are already ahead of him. Sparkplug discovers they are all armed to the teeth, locked and loaded. One of the vets here says, "We're way ahead of you, brother." But before they go guns a-blazing, Carly tries to explain to Sparkplug that there are good robots and bad, but he doesn't want to hear it. He argues that no matter who's good or bad in war, when the fighting starts, people die. At that moment, Cliffjumper pops up at the bar, trying to say he is a good guy, but Sparkplug doesn't let him explain. He immediately goes full-on Rambo, blasting him back out of the bar, who appears outside of the bar saying, "Thanks for starting the job for us," is Skywarp. He punches Cliffjumper right in the face and then kicks the vets here, sending a few of their bodies flying. Like, my god, the Decepticons are just brutal. Skywarp begins wreaking havoc. The bartender Danny tells Sparkplug they need heavy weaponry. As they're grabbing an RPG, Skywarp approaches Cliffjumper, and Carly steps in, guarding his body. Skywarp laughs at her attempt to protect him. As he's about to blast both of them, Optimus Prime arrives, ramming Skywarp, saying, "Get away from them." He tells Spike to get to cover and says, "This is a fight I must wage myself." The battle begins. He and Skywarp charge at each other, firing their blasters. What Skywarp does next, I've never seen him do before. He creates a small teleportation portal, reaches his hands through, one pops up behind Optimus, and he grabs Optimus's head from behind and slams him. Now, I've seen him teleport himself and others instantly, but I never knew he was capable of opening portals with his teleportation ability. If any of you can point out a time he's done this before in the comics or shows, let me know in the comments below. Or is this something Daniel Warren Johnson created? If he did, it's pure genius. Skywarp then hits Optimus with a roundhouse to the face. Optimus quickly responds though by lifting Skywarp and slamming him into the ground. Once Optimus is on his feet, he unleashes his Energon axe and says, "You fought hard, Skywarp, now let us be done." Just when Optimus is about to put an end to Skywarp, Danny fires off his RPG that hits Optimus's arm, damaging it. Skywarp says, "By the soul of the fallen, they're not just weak, they're stupid." He fires into Optimus's damaged arm, putting it out for good. He then starts unleashing a wave of blaster fire on Optimus. Spike yells to Optimus to hang on as he runs onto the battlefield wanting to help. At the same time, Sparkplug regroups the vets and orders them to unleash hell on Optimus and Skywarp. However, one of those bullets hits Spike right in the gut, knocking him unconscious. Optimus yells no, and Sparkplug orders the vets to hold their fire. Skywarp goes to literally flick Spike's body, but Optimus isn't having it. He tackles Skywarp and says, "You and your kind have played enough with this planet." He rips off his damaged arm and says, "I will have no more of it." He bashes Skywarp in the face and just keeps beating him with his damaged arm until he's down for the count. Optimus approaches Spike's body, and it reminds him of the doe he accidentally killed in the last issue. Sparkplug, pointing his pistol at Optimus, tells him not to touch Spike. Optimus grabs Spike's body, transforms, and says to Sparkplug, "Come with me, I'm going to save your boy." This is the best issue so far in Skybound's Transformers. Starscream is a psychopath, relationships are built, and Optimus replaces his arm with something powerful. What's up everyone, this is James. Make sure to hit that like button, and if you happen to be new here, be sure to check out the playlist of what we've covered so far in this series, right below the like button at the end of this video. Okay, so this picks up with Starscream approaching Skywarp's damaged body. Remember, Optimus absolutely demolished him in the last video. Starscream asks him where the Autobots are, and Skywarp answers they went east. Initially, it seems like Starscream cares about his fellow Seeker. He's holding his hand, calling him friend, but don't let that fool you like it did me. Starscream is a straight up psychopath. Besides the brutal kills we've seen him commit already in these past 3 videos, by the end of this one, he does something even worse. At the quarry, Ratchet is working on Wheeljack, who I'll just tell you all now won't be making his appearance in this video, but another familiar Autobot will be making their first appearance, and it's going to be awesome. Optimus, still heavily damaged from the fight with Skywarp, calls Ratchet to inform him about Spike's condition and tells him they need help because Starscream is right on his tail. While Optimus takes a hit on the call, Ratchet rushes to get help. Starscream transforms and stands in Optimus's path, gloating about how this is the end for him. At that moment though, coming out of the forest is Carly and Cliffjumper. Cliffjumper says to Carly, "Last chance to ditch." Carly replies, "Are you kidding?" Clicks on the seatbelt and says, "Get his ass." Cliffjumper rams into Starscream, knocking him off his feet. Optimus then adds insult to injury by running him over. After Starscream recovers, he orders Soundwave to send backup. Optimus arrives at Farmingham Hospital, getting Spike some medical attention. But Laserbeak also arrives, barraging the Autobots and the hospital with blaster fire. And he doesn't arrive alone. Rumble finally makes his appearance, hitting Cliffjumper from behind with his piledriver arms. Soundwave catches Optimus off guard with a big boot to the face. He says Optimus inferior. Now this is where we see even more of Starscream's psycho behavior. When he arrives, Soundwave has Optimus literally dead to rights, blaster to the head. Instead of letting Soundwave just end him there, he orders him to wait because he wants Optimus to suffer before he kills him. He looks at the hospital and quickly deduces it's a place where humans get fixed. As the hospital staff workers are working on saving Spike, Starscream, laughing, starts blasting the hospital up while telling Optimus he'll destroy the only place that can save his precious humans. The hospital ends up losing power, and while Starscream is enjoying the destruction, Soundwave informs him Autobots are incoming. We see Ratchet towing Optimus's trailer and one of the most badass, coolest Autobots driving alongside him, Jazz. He says, "Time to change up this tune, baby." He drifts and dodges the Decepticons' attack, transforms and whips out a shotgun blaster. He blasts Starscream, grabs Soundwave by the head, and straight up power drives him into the ground. Now that's how you make an entrance. Probably the best one so far. Optimus, back on his feet, says, "What do you say, Decepticons? Shall we finish it?" To no surprise, Starscream orders a retreat. At the end of the battle, Optimus asks Carly about Spike. Later, we see Optimus looking through a hole in the hospital roof, overhearing the doctors informing Sparkplug how they were luckily able to stabilize Spike, but he needs a machine to breathe. And with the backup generators gone, Spike and the other patients on life support at the hospital will die tonight. Sparkplug falls into despair, worrying he's going to lose Spike. He says, "My beautiful boy." Suddenly, a blue light covering the hospital catches his and the hospital staff's attention. Optimus unveils the Matrix of Leadership. It's absolutely incredible. Ratchet says, "Optimus, no." And Optimus replies, "No more death, Ratchet, even if it comes at a price. No more death." Optimus removes the Matrix from his chest, unleashing its almighty power and bringing light to their darkest hour. The Matrix restores power to the hospital. With the power now back online, the hospital staff rushes Spike to the ICU. At the Ark, the Decepticons return, and Soundwave finally calls out Starscream on his ineffective leadership, recent failures, and lust for destruction. Starscream fires back, blaming him for not being able to fix Teletran. If he did, they would have an army of the Decepticon brothers at their side. Soundwave reminds him that he told him they can't fix Teletran without Cybertronian technology. At that moment, that's when they both realize they have Cybertronian tech they can use. The damaged Skywarp. They both start ripping him apart as Skywarp begs for them to stop. This lets us know early on there is no brotherhood, no loyalty between the Decepticons. Meanwhile, at the hospital, we get some real insight into why Sparkplug spends his days at the VFW bar drinking and has such a negative view on life. Speaking to a comatose Spike, Sparkplug reveals after the war, all he wanted to do was protect him from where he grew up, and that's why he moved them out here. That he hasn't been able to see the good in the world anymore since the war and Jimmy's death. He feels like he is infected, and that infection spreads to everyone he loves the most. The person who reminded him of how to see the good in the world was Spike. Sparkplug turns his attention to Optimus outside, talking to one of the hospital's young patients who wants to see him transform. Sparkplug approaches him, asking if he could use the Matrix again to bring Spike out of his coma. Optimus answers that it wasn't him who did that. He was sharing a gift that was given to him many years ago, and he used every bit of what was left. That it's all up to the Great Spark now. Sparkplug is confused by Optimus referring to a god because he thought the Transformers were gods. This amuses Optimus, and he responds he could say the same thing about him. When Sparkplug says, "I'm nothing, look at me compared to you," Optimus replies, "True, small, but still mighty." I love this conversation, and I also love the fact that Daniel Warren Johnson is creating a deep connection early on between Optimus and the Witwickies. I do kind of wish Bumblebee was a part of it because I love his relationship with Spike in the G1 show. Now, when it comes to Optimus mentioning this being called the Great Spark, he could be referring to Primus, the creator and god of the Transformers. Later, Optimus meets with Ratchet. Now, they're going to have a major debate here. Ratchet informs him he was able to fix the hospital's generator, but when he tries to bring up the Matrix, Optimus assures him it's fine. However, Ratchet disagrees. He's angry at Optimus for using the Matrix on the humans instead of using it to repair his own body, especially when it channels and drains the spirit of its host when used, and the Autobots need him now more than ever. It's because of that Optimus is in a position where he can't use it again. Its power has been drained. Ratchet views it as a waste. Optimus argues though that they brought this war to Earth, and were the cause of why Spike's life became endangered. He refuses to let someone innocent die in front of him. Ratchet swiftly fires back, and says from what he's seen, humans are prone to anger and destruction. They're the ones who put Spike in his current condition. Optimus points out that the humans are just like them. Their conversation gets interrupted when Jazz approaches and collapses. Ratchet explains to Optimus that he pulled every bit of Energon from the Autobots' bodies to bring Jazz back online, but it wasn't enough. He only brought him back long enough to fight in the battle to save them and the humans. Ratchet says, "It's time we think about ourselves, Optimus. If you die, we all die. And if you're gone, the Decepticons take over. What will be left of humanity then, if they're even worth saving?" Optimus replies, "They are worth saving, Ratchet. Everything is." Ratchet tells Optimus he has no way to heal him or the Autobots until they get some Energon, but does have one thing in Optimus's trailer that could help him in the meantime. When Optimus sees it, he immediately refuses. However, Ratchet points out he is barely standing, and they're in a dire situation. There is no other choice. Sparkplug interrupts, informing them he might have a solution to their energy problem. From here we go to Cliffjumper and Carly. So remember how I said I love the relationship between Bumblebee and Spike in the G1 show? This is the genius of Daniel Warren Johnson. He's taken that relationship and making it here between Cliffjumper and Carly, and it's freaking amazing. As Carly is mourning her dad and Spike, Cliffjumper tries to console her and says he knows how she feels. He reveals long before Starscream killed her family, Starscream wiped out his entire clan. The day after that happened, he joined the Autobots. Carly asks him, does this feeling go away? Does it get easier? Cliffjumper doesn't have an answer. He only tries to comfort her. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this, so feel free to correct me in the comments below, but I think clans within the Transformerverse are a new concept. In IDW's Transformerverse, specifically in the Autocracy trilogy, we saw that there are guilds, different factions on Cybertron, other than the standard Autobot and Decepticon factions. Like there was the Engineering Guild, the Circle of Light, and the Chroniclers. So if clans is a new thing Daniel Warren Johnson has created, it's absolutely freaking cool and it works. Now Optimus approaches them, and Cliffjumper is shocked at the sight of Optimus Prime wearing Megatron's black fusion cannon. This is so awesome, and is something I didn't know I wanted to see until this issue. Optimus gains the power of Megatron. Optimus asks Cliffjumper, how do you feel about going on the offensive? Returning to the Ark, Soundwave and Starscream are continuing to tear apart Skywarp for material and are restoring the rest of the Decepticons. Starscream laughing says, "I am the Decepticon leader, today, tomorrow, and forever." And as that's going on, we then see Megatron's body in this Arctic region embedded in ice. So it turns out my theory about Megatron's body being elsewhere was correct. The Autobots are going to kick some Decepticon butt in this video, and Optimus with the power of Megatron is going to blow your minds. What's up everyone, James here, and make sure to hit that like button. So remember in the last video I mentioned Daniel Warren Johnson is creating a connection between the Witwikis and Optimus early on? We get even more of that in the opening of this latest issue. As Optimus Prime and Sparkplug Witwiki reflect on their wars and share their experiences with each other, we see parallel flashbacks of those experiences, the horrors of war they witnessed, and the comrades they both lost on the battlefield. And in the moments of mourning their comrades, that grief quickly turned into rage. A rage that consumed them and brought death to those they faced on the battlefield. They both ask each other how long their respective wars were. Sparkplug says 1 tour and that was enough for him. Optimus responds his war has been going on so long that he has lost count, and it's still going. Sparkplug asks Optimus, who he points out comes from a different galaxy and has seen so much more of life than him, if war is always the inevitable outcome. I love Optimus's answer. He says, "If only the light years I've traveled equaled the wisdom I've gained. But it is not so. I ask myself that question every day, Sparky. But then I see my reflection and see the very thing I'm fighting against." What I really love about Optimus's response is that it gives us a glimpse into his emotional state. We see that Optimus is a hero and leader who's been scarred by war and recognizes that in the heat of battle, he becomes like those he's been fighting against. Remember that because we will see that firsthand later in this video. Meanwhile at the Ark, the Decepticons have successfully rebuilt Teletran 1 using Skywarp's body. We see that his head and torso are a part of Teletran. I want to give a shout out to Soundwave Transformers 9987, who pointed out in the last Transformers video that since Skywarp is a part of Teletran 1, he is technically still alive. Now we get more Starscream disrespect in Soundwave. When Soundwave proposes that the next Decepticon they restore be Ravage, Starscream kicks Ravage's body out of Soundwave's arms while saying "fat chance." I hope Soundwave kills Starscream. I hope he's the one to do it. Instead of Ravage being restored, Starscream grabs Thundercracker's body and restores him. The interesting thing that happens is once Thundercracker is revived, he is shocked and disgusted by Skywarp's current state and automatically assumes an Autobot is responsible. Starscream doesn't reveal that he is the one responsible. He just tells him to forget Skywarp and that he gave his life for the Decepticon cause. At that moment, Soundwave informs Starscream that Laserbeak is reporting that the Autobots have found their source of energy. Who we see next that has also been restored and suggests they get their energy is Frenzy and Reflector. Just when Reflector is about to ask where Megatron is, Starscream immediately cuts him off, telling him to focus on wiping out the Autobots. Notice how this is like the second or third time Starscream doesn't even want to hear Megatron's name. Now, besides him wanting Megatron to be forgotten, since he considers himself the new leader of the Decepticons, there is another reason why that we'll find out later in the video. The Decepticons assemble and leave to attack the Autobots. Returning to the Autobots, we see that the energy source Sparkplug mentioned in the last video is this hydropower dam. So it seems like the Decepticons figured out that instead of attacking numerous power plants and gathering energy that way, just take it directly from the source. Who we see next that has finally been revived is Wheeljack, but only half his body since the Autobots are still limited on resources. What he, Ratchet, and Sparkplug have created here is an Energon generating turbine. I really like that we see Wheeljack compliments how Sparkplug aided in the effort of creating this and praises his intelligence. That shows us that the whole Witwiki family are very intelligent. One thing I want to point out here that is a sign of how not only Energon, but Cybertronian tech will influence Earth is Wheeljack informs Sparkplug that if the turbine works, it will fuel the Autobots but also power the entire town for at least a decade. The Autobots activate the turbine and see it's successful. Wheeljack tells Optimus they should get him fixed first, but Optimus refuses and insists their fellow Autobot warriors get repaired first. We see this awesome image of Optimus carrying RC's body. Shortly after, we see RC get revived and kind of get a glimpse of her and Ratchet having a close relationship. But before we can see more of their reunion, the Decepticons attack. Starscream quickly figures out that the Autobots' turbine is reviving their forces and orders the Decepticons to destroy it. Optimus orders the Autobots to protect the turbine at all costs, and for Ratchet to get more of the Autobots to the turbine. I love that we see him and Sparkplug fighting side by side. Starscream drops Reflector from the sky, who transforms and starts blasting away at Optimus while saying, "Prepare yourselves, Autobots, for instant suffering and And before he can finish the sentence, he stares down Megatron's fusion cannon. Optimus completely obliterates Reflector like that. Just one blast took him completely out. Early on, we see just how powerful Megatron's cannon is. And this is just a small tidbit of just how powerful Megatron could be in this Energon universe. Optimus then grabs Frenzy and slams his body against the railing of the dam. Optimus Prime is playing no games and is out for blood. I do wish though they weren't taken out so quickly, because I do think it was the perfect opportunity for Daniel Warren Johnson to showcase Frenzy and Reflector having abilities. Like, we know Frenzy with his sonic weaponry can induce panic and hysteria on Transformers, like we saw in the Autocracy trilogy. What if Daniel Warren Johnson had Reflector split himself apart to the photons, Spectro, Spyglass, and Viewfinder, just when Optimus was about to blast him to hell in order to dodge the blast? That would have been cool. We then see Cliffjumper and Carly side by side hiding behind cover while Thundercracker blasts away at their position. Carly gets hot-headed here for a second and puts herself right into Thundercracker's strafing run. He blasts the ground beneath her and Carly falls down the side of the dam before Cliffjumper can grab her. Everyone is in shock, and what happens next is amazing. RC runs up the side of the dam and says, "I don't know who you are, but if Optimus cares about you, then I care too." She transforms into her vehicle mode, which is a Lamborghini by the way. She drifts and opens the driver's side door and catches Carly. This was just so freaking awesome. Now Rumble sneaks up behind Cliffjumper, trying to catch him off guard again. But out of nowhere, a restored Jazz surprises him from behind with a shotgun blast to the ass. We then see Cliffjumper and Jazz fighting side by side. Man, Daniel Warren Johnson is just killing it with these side by side images. Starscream confronts Optimus on the battlefield about stealing Megatron's fusion cannon, which he weirdly calls precious. Even Optimus calls him out on calling it precious, and he says, "You sure this doesn't make you quake in your jets, Starscream? Last I remember, you were cowering in front of this very weapon." What Optimus is most likely referring to is something we will probably see in the Energon Universe special we're getting in May. It's going to have 3 original stories featuring the Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Void Rivals. Based on the preview images they released, the Transformers story is going to be the battle that took place on the Ark before the Transformers crash landed on Earth. That's where I think we'll see Megatron try to kill Starscream before getting jettisoned out of the Ark. Starscream gets pissed when Optimus says, "This is a constant reminder of what you'll never be." He goes to fire at Starscream, but Starscream quickly slips out of Optimus's firing range and starts blasting away with his null rays at the Autobot Energon turbine and destroys it. Just when he claims victory, Optimus meets his mark and hits Starscream with the fusion cannon. Afterwards, Starscream orders the Decepticons to retreat. Optimus, seeing that the numbers are now in the Autobots' favor and the Decepticons are on their back, decides to use this opportunity to finish off the Decepticons and retake the Ark. Now this is where Optimus makes a mistake. He is letting his anger, impatience, and the heat of battle state that he's in prevent him from realizing he should use this victory to rest and recover and really restore himself and the Autobots to full power. Before they leave, Carly stands in their way, telling them she wants to go. However, Sparkplug is against it because it's too dangerous. Carly argues though Spike's in a coma and she has no family left. She wants to see this to the end. Carly is kind of on a path of vengeance here, because remember, Starscream killed her father. But after the scare earlier, Optimus agrees with Sparkplug and tells her that she is basically family, telling her that she is precious to all of them and apologizing that she can't come. He says, "Autobots, roll out, for Cybertron and for Earth." Cliffjumper secretly grabs Carly and hides her in his vehicle. Later, once the Autobots arrive at Hangar's Rock, Sparkplug sees the Ark for the very first time and asks Optimus if this is the vessel that brought them to Earth, which Optimus answers yes. At that moment, Sparkplug remembers saying goodbye to his son Jimmy before his space shuttle launch. Now, hear me out here, but what if this is Daniel Warren Johnson's way of hinting that the day the Transformers arrived on Earth, on the Ark, was the same day Jimmy's launch was, and the Ark destroyed Jimmy's shuttle as it entered Earth's atmosphere? That would be crazy. Comment below your thoughts on that theory. Suddenly, the Autobots get blasted. Out of nowhere, Optimus gets absolutely crushed by this green vehicle. The rest of the Autobots get attacked by more of these green vehicles. Ratchet loses one of his legs, and Jazz and RC get knocked back. Starscream gloats about how he planned on the Autobots following them, and with all the Energon they have and Teletran 1, he already restored his body and created new Transformers, the Constructicons. He says, "Constructicons, merge into Devastator." Optimus Prime, heavily damaged, and Sparkplug are about to be crushed by this mighty combiner. That's the end of the issue. This was absolutely incredible. Now in the issue, Starscream called the Constructicons his new toys. I took that as he created the Constructicons like Shockwave did in the Marvel Transformer comics. Or they've already existed and they were just part of the Decepticons that were out of commission and he meant newly restored. But if Starscream did in fact create them, that is a nice change up when compared to his G1 cartoon counterpart who created the Combaticons. Either way, I cannot wait for the finale of this arc. It's going to be insane. This is probably the craziest, most intense, and most emotionally gut-wrenching video of Transformers I've ever made. What's up everyone, James here, and we are at the finale, the end of the first arc of Skybound Transformers. If you are new here or need to catch up, the link to the playlist will be right below the like button. This opens with a flashback of Sparkplug witnessing Jimmy's shuttle launch. Jimmy had assured him that everything was going to be fine, but then he died. We then return to the Autobots struggling to survive Devastator's onslaught. I really love how Daniel Warren Johnson depicts Devastator as an almost Godzilla-sized combiner. Optimus is dragging Ratchet, who lost one of his legs in the last video. He orders the Autobots to retreat into the Ark. Cliffjumper with Carly charges toward Devastator to help the other Autobots, but Carly stops him. She explains that because of their size, they aren't going to be able to do anything to Devastator. They need to use their heads. She suggests they find more firepower on the ship and asks if there's another entrance they can access. Cliffjumper answers there should be an entrance at the center of the ship. As they're heading to the ship, Starscream is enjoying the chaos, rocking out and throwing up the devil horns, which is something I didn't know I wanted to see him do until now. He believes he's won. However, his arrogant and cocky nature made him careless yet again, because the battle isn't over. Optimus Prime catches him off guard with a boot to the face. The Autobots have made it to the Ark and are keeping the Decepticons back. Thundercracker fires his null rays at the Autobots while yelling they will pay for what they did to Skywarp. The fact that he said this a couple times now is making me theorize there will be a big confrontation between him and Starscream when he finds out he's the one really responsible for Skywarp's current condition. Optimus Prime protects Sparkplug from Thundercracker's blaster fire, but leaves himself open to Devastator, who grabs his leg. Starscream tries to inform Devastator that the rest of the Autobots are escaping into the Ark, but when Devastator swings Optimus's body, he accidentally hits Starscream in the process, sending his ass flying, which is pretty funny. He then bashes and drags Optimus's body against the Ark and slams him right into the ground. Like, my god, how much more of a beating can Optimus take? The Autobots focus their fire on Devastator, distracting him long enough for them to grab Optimus's body and drag him into the ship. While they're trying to escape into the ship, Ratchet, who is crawling away as fast as he can, gets grabbed by Devastator on the one leg he has left. As Devastator is dragging him away, Jazz shuts the Ark's bay doors, but it crushes Ratchet's leg in the process. Devastator becomes enraged that the Autobots have escaped his grasp, and he stupidly begins destroying the ship. Soundwave stops him because he is attacking their base. He informs them that the side of the mountain has less rock, for him to dig through it in order to access the Ark. Carly and Cliffjumper reach the access port in the middle of the ship, but they soon discover Starscream has followed them. When Carly says, "You killed my dad," Starscream laughs, but then is confused and asks, "What is a dad?" Just more Transformers not knowing the Earth family dynamics here. Cliffjumper tells Carly to get behind him, and Starscream says, "Alright then, kill Dad, kill Red Boy here, then I kill you." Cliffjumper responds, "Not on my watch." And the fight between the Autobots' Red Demon and the psychotic Decepticon begins. Meanwhile, as Devastator digs through the side of the mountain, Optimus Prime is dying, and is reminiscent of his death in Transformers the movie. Sparkplug asks Ratchet if he can fix him, and Ratchet answers that his wounds are too far gone, and that he isn't going to make it. Optimus says, "My friends, I am sorry. I thought we still had hope. It's why I led us here, away from Cybertron, to find another way. But I see now, Jetfire was right." Remember in the first video, Jetfire died believing there was no hope for them or Cybertron. And we see Optimus is dying believing the same thing, which is very sad. RC still has hope though and responds, "No Prime, you can do it. You can't die." Optimus removes the matrix of leadership from his chest and replies, "I can feel my gears slowing, RC. My spark is giving away. It is time. One of you must take the matrix." He is so weak he drops it on the floor. Sparkplug walks toward the matrix and says, "If there only was a way. My men, Jimmy, Spike, whenever something bad happened to them, I'd always think, if only I could have taken their place. If only it were me instead of them. Maybe now is my chance." He turns to Optimus and says, "I know you're going to care for this world like I care for my boys. Watch over them for me. And when Spike wakes up, tell my son I'm proud of him." Sparkplug enters into the Matrix, giving his life to restore its power. The Matrix restores Optimus Prime back to full strength. Optimus grabs the Matrix and says, "You will not be forgotten, Sparky, and I promise I will protect your son. I will protect the whole Earth." This was amazing and incredibly sad at the same time, but it forever connects the Witwickies and Optimus. It also gave Sparkplug the opportunity to make the sacrifice he had always wanted to make for his loved ones. Suddenly, the Decepticons crash through the roof of the Ark. Optimus grabs one of Devastator's fingers and rips it right off. He picks up his ion blaster and fires it and Megatron's fusion cannon at the same time at Devastator, unleashing firepower hell on him. This is probably the most badass image of Optimus so far in this series. I want you all to imagine The Touch is playing in the background right now. Optimus then runs up to the giant and straight up drop kicks him in the face. Now, elsewhere on the ship, Starscream is about to rip Cliffjumper's head off. And as he is doing it, he gloats about how he massacred Cliffjumper's clan, describing how he ripped each optic nerve from their weeping faces. Carly manages to pick up a blaster nearby and blast Starscream with it. Cliffjumper grabs the blaster and says, "I remember that day like it happened seconds ago." I've always wondered what this moment would feel like. He aims the blaster right at Starscream's head as he pleads for his life, but he decides not to pull the trigger and turns away. And Carly gets pissed and reminds him Starscream killed her father and his entire clan. But Cliffjumper responds he is tired of all the fighting. To be honest with y'all, I really don't know how I feel about this part. On the one hand, I understand Cliffjumper does not want to pull the trigger because he has been fighting this war for a century. So that initial response of wanting revenge right after Starscream killed his clan, I can see dissipating over the course of 100 years, where you're just fighting and surviving constantly. And to be fair, Cliffjumper is a naturally good-natured individual. However, I'm finding it hard to believe that after everything Starscream has done in this series, and right after describing what he did to his clan, Cliffjumper can just walk away and not pull the trigger, or at the very least, knock him out or injure him. Comment below with your thoughts. Now, because Cliffjumper turned his back on such a psychotic bot, Starscream grabs Carly and begins crushing her. Returning to Optimus Prime versus Devastator, Optimus lures him away from the ship while blasting him with Megatron's fusion cannon in his vehicle mode, which is pretty cool. He leads Devastator to the edge of a cliff, continuing to blast him with the Ion Blaster fusion cannon combo. He goads Devastator into attacking him, and as the giant combiner charges toward him, Optimus gets underneath him, using Devastator's momentum to lift and toss the combiner off the cliff. Cliffjumper asks Starscream to let Carly go, but he refuses and continues to squeeze her until he is crushed by Devastator. This image is incredible, and Daniel Warren Johnson just nailed it. Cliffjumper saves Carly, but their amazing relationship might forever be changed. When he checks up on her, her only words to him are, "You had him. You could have ended it all." Devastator, now broken up to the Constructicons, grabs Starscream's body and begins their retreat. Before Soundwave leaves, Optimus approaches him, attempting to make peace and offers they work together to save Cybertron. Soundwave rejects the offer by trying to punch Optimus in the face. Optimus responds in the best way. He catches his punch and says, "Make no mistake, Soundwave, I desire peace, but I am no fool." Soundwave grabs onto Thundercracker flying off. Now I think this was Daniel Warren Johnson's way of setting up early on, not in the near future, but at some point, maybe Soundwave will become an Autobot. We'll have to wait and see. Now at Farmingham Hospital, Spike awakens from his coma. The doctor tells him not to speak, so he writes on a piece of paper, "Where's my dad?" This is officially the end of the first arc of Skybound Transformers. I hope you all enjoyed not only this video, but also the entire arc as much as I did. I really think this might go down as one of the best of all time. What's up, Beyonders? James here, and in today's video, we'll be focusing on the champion of Kaon, the scourge of Cybertron, the Prime Slayer, and the true leader of the Decepticons, Megatron. I'm pumped and ready. Make sure to hit that like button and comment on your favorite title that I just said for Megatron. With that out of the way, let's get into it. So this is one of the short stories we were given in the Energon Universe special. It begins with the Battle of the Ark, where we see Megatron as a one-bot wrecking crew. He demolishes every Autobot he comes upon. I freaking love it. He bashes Wheeljack and says, "I pity you, Autobots. I see your struggle. You fight with honor and passion. If only your cause were just." He tosses aside Cliffjumper and blasts a hole through Brawn's chest with his fusion cannon. Like, damn, son. Optimus becomes enraged and charges at Megatron while saying, "Stop this." Megatron replies, "Never." The two leaders start exchanging blows, but Megatron is too powerful and eventually gains the upper hand. He smashes Optimus and adds insult to injury by puncturing one of Optimus's optics while saying, "Your weakness was the downfall of Cybertron." Suddenly, Optimus whips out his Energon axe and slices off Megatron's fusion cannon arm. Optimus kicks him, sending him flying toward an opening of the ship. Megatron manages to grab onto the edge of the opening. He asks Starscream for help, and the Seeker replies, "Shh, don't worry, rest now. Let me relieve you of this heavy burden of leadership." He blasts Megatron off the ship, sending him falling into Earth's atmosphere. For the most part, I totally called this all the way back in the second issue of Transformers in my Starscream vs. Duke video. We then go to the present. Megatron awakens in Cobra-La, enraged by the memory of Starscream's betrayal. He suddenly breaks free from his bonds and stomps on one of the Cobra-La scientists here, and the other is pinned beneath his foot, pleading for his life. Megatron demands to know where his limbs are. The scientist tells him only one was found and points to a room where it's being held. Megatron allows him to live and finds his left arm. He reattaches it, but at that moment, Lord Globulus enters the room atop this mighty looking beast with his entire royal guard. He says, "Do not let this beast escape." I love Megatron's response to that. He chuckles and says, "Beast, so shall it be." He charges toward them and starts beating down the royal guard. Globulus becomes enraged and yells, "You are a metal abomination, inorganic filth. You still belong to me." His beast bites and slugs Megatron. What's surprising here is this beast's jaws are strong enough to penetrate Cybertronian armor. However, this only stops Megatron for a moment. He responds, "Pathetic insect, do you know who I am? I belong to no one." He unleashes his Energon mace and smashes Globulus's beast, putting it down for the count. Globulus counters, "You are mistaken, beast," and throws his spear into Megatron's only optic. Megatron pulls the spear out of his optic and says, "No, I am the leader of the Decepticons, the leader of the true way, the only way." Now blind and full of rage, Megatron flees the battle by flying up and bursting through the surface of the snowy mountains. Atop one of the mountains, he says, "I am coming for you, Starscream." Now this next portion we're going to cover was in the final issue of Cobra Commander. Sometime later in the aftermath of Megatron's escape, while speaking to Pythona, Globulus expresses how furious he is over Cobra Commander's monstrosity escaping and nearly destroying their home. Pythona mentions bringing an outsider into their world was a mistake, and informs Globulus that she hasn't heard from Nemesis Enforcer in many days, and assumes he failed in his mission to kill Cobra Commander. Globulus shows her the discovery he's made in Cobra Commander's lab, which reveals that the Commander lied to him about the origin of Megatron. He wasn't from the outside world like the Commander had told him. He says he comes from a world of blasphemous metal, our opposite in the universe. They betray our very being and everything we stand for, and they are here now and will bring about our demise. We must send another agent to find the Commander and bring him back to us, so I can squeeze the life out of him myself. Pythona replies, "I will explore the source of these invaders. If this Empire of Steel wishes to take what is ours, I will uncover their history and weaknesses, and bring this war to the stars." Pythona launches on an organic ship into space, heading to Cybertron. Megatron has escaped, and Cobra-La has declared war on Cybertron. The Transformer God Primus has answered my prayers. My boy Soundwave is going to open a huge can of you-know-what on Starscream in this video. What's up, Beyonders? James here, and it's been a while, but we are finally back with Skybound's Transformers. So this opens up on Cybertron with Elita 1 leading a squad of Autobots consisting of Cup, Huffer, and Warpath, trying to reach this fortress while battling the Decepticons. When I initially read this issue, I told myself that fortress looks like Shockwave. It turns out it is Shockwave's fortress, but they don't explicitly say that in this issue. I had to look it up online in order to confirm this. Like I'm going to say here, and I have been saying throughout this entire series, Skybound's Transformers is partly inspired by Dreamwave's Transformers, since Shockwave's Fortress first appeared in Dreamwave's Transformers: The War and Peace miniseries. Now, we're not given any indication of when this takes place in the issue. However, I think this is currently taking place because the war on Cybertron wouldn't end because the main forces and leaders of the Autobots and Decepticons are on Earth right now. Now, if this is in fact currently taking place, that's very interesting because the last time we saw Cybertron was in the 4th issue of Void Rivals, where we saw Shockwave seemingly running the show, and that's where we learned that he had barely enough Energon to sustain himself and his fellow Decepticons, who he said were in stasis at that time. So are the Autobots here battling the Decepticons, or has Shockwave created robot sentries like in the G1 show? Anyways, Alita orders the team to charge for the fortress, and Kup has Huffer cover their rear with his shield. I was slightly confused by this because the only Autobot I know that can create a shield is Trailbreaker. Like, I know Huffer is a construction engineer, but I don't remember him being able to construct a shield as one of his abilities. Huffer's shield though only has 7% power and it doesn't hold out long. The Decepticons easily penetrate it and boom, Huffer falls. The team makes it to the fortress and Warpath and Kup do their best to cover Alita 1, but Kup gets blasted in his midsection, separating his torso from the lower half of his body, and Warpath gets blown to bits. Kup yells to Alita, "Save him for all of us." And at that moment, he takes a shot to the head and Kup is gone. Alita is the only one left. Now she makes her way into the fortress and we see the Autobot they came to save is Ultra Magnus. However, Alita is horrified when she discovers they're too late. Shockwave has reduced him to nothing but a pile of parts, a shell of his former self. Alita says, "What have they done to you?" Now, the reason why I say this is Ultra Magnus is because of something we'll learn later in the video. Now, on Earth in the Pacific Ocean, the captain of the USS Henry Harrison receives a call from an admiral. After the call, the captain orders his men to head to the coast of Washington because they're going to find some giant robots. So this confirms for us that the government has become fully aware of the Transformers, at least in some capacity. They aren't dismissing it as not a real thing like they did in the Duke miniseries. From here, we go to my absolute favorite part of the issue. Are you ready, Beyonders? Are you ready? At this volcanic region, where the Decepticons are regrouping, Soundwave has called a meeting of the Decepticons. And when Starscream asks why, Soundwave answers, "We find ourselves on the run, beaten by barely functioning Autobots and their weak humans. This is not the way it should be. We are the Decepticons, the conquerors, the ones who enslave." When Rumble tries to say Megatron would make this right, Starscream interrupts him by immediately throwing him into the ground and telling him to shut up. Soundwave says to Starscream, "It's time to step down." Now, Starscream tries to turn the other Decepticons against him, but that's not happening. His own Seeker brother Thundercracker steps up and says, "He challenged you. This is our way." He pushes Starscream towards Soundwave while saying, "Ready yourself for combat." I love this so much because this shows us that the Decepticons live by a Kurtocracy, which is a form of government or rule where the strongest prove their strength and seize power. The strongest rules. Now, we don't know yet how the Decepticons came to be in this universe, but should we find out that they were former gladiators who rebelled against the Autobot government, which is honestly my preferred origin for them, like in the Dreamwave and IDW universe, this philosophy and form of rule would perfectly go with that origin. Starscream quickly realizes he's in trouble and tries to ask Soundwave to wait, but Soundwave is like, "Nah, son," and blasts one of Starscream's null rays. Starscream then tries to bargain with Soundwave, offering co-leadership. Soundwave responds, "The time for talk is done." He straight up punches Starscream right in the face and gives Starscream a beating, completely destroying the damaged null ray on Starscream's body and sending his ass flying. Soundwave asks Starscream, "Do you yield?" Starscream responds by yelling "never" and throws some rocks at Soundwave, temporarily distracting him and thinking he's got the drop on him. Oh man, how wrong he is. Soundwave grips his face in midair and slams him into the ground. tosses his own blaster so he can beat Starscream with his bare hands. Though Starscream fires his null ray and it damages Soundwave, it still doesn't stop him. Soundwave headbutts Starscream and ejects Laserbeak, who plunges his beak right into Starscream's optic and rips it out. Like holy hell. Despite enduring this almighty beating from Soundwave, Starscream is still so arrogant enough to believe he's in a position to bargain. He tells Soundwave he's willing to forgive this betrayal. Soundwave responds by walking towards him and says, "You kicked my Ravage." He plunges his fist into Starscream's chest, ripping out parts, and says the only path is extermination. Goodbye, Starscream. He drops his body over the cliff. Soundwave turns to his fellow Decepticons and says, "These parts will help heal Ravage, but I will not only heal my own, we will rebuild, conquer, and destroy together. Are you with me, brothers?" The Decepticons bow before Soundwave, and Thundercracker announces, "Decepticons, honor our new leader." They all chant, "Soundwave, Soundwave, Soundwave." God, do I love this image of my boy Soundwave as the new leader of the Decepticons. All hail Soundwave. From here, we transition to the Autobots. At the Ark, RC checks up on Carly, joining in on her rifle training. She impresses Carly with her shooting when she blows up her targets in one shot. She mentions that Optimus told her once she's the best shot he's ever seen. Though I'm still iffy, honestly, on Cliffjumper not taking the chance to eliminate Starscream at the end of the last arc in the last video, we learn here that RC shares his feelings toward the war. She is also tired of fighting this war, and mentions to Carly she wishes she wasn't so good at shooting, wishes she didn't have to fight anymore. When Carly says she should be happy she's so skilled at it because it will help her eliminate Decepticons, like Starscream, RC responds, "I can see the fire in your eyes. Be careful it doesn't consume you." She reveals to Carly that she reminds her of her younger self. She goes on to explain when she was very young, she had a teacher named Ultra Magnus, who, when her clan was killed during the siege of Cybertron, saved her. He was the one who taught her how to shoot and fight and everything she knows. This is another image I love in this issue. Ultra Magnus looks awesome. Now, this is why I believe the bot Alita 1 and the Autobots were trying to save at the beginning of the issue is Ultra Magnus, because not only does the large size of the two match, and the armor has the same shade of blue, but also the fact that they're bringing him up in this issue. RC says to Carly, "I wanted justice for my people. Magnus died because of my path of hate. A path that takes more than it heals, Carly. If it heals at all." I love RC's advice and warning to Carly about the path of vengeance, because it's coming from someone who was on that path, and it perfectly describes how, if you take that journey, it won't change anything at all at the end. If any of you are Naruto fans, this reminds me of Kakashi's Let It Go speech to Sasuke, when he told him to let go of the drive of vengeance that was fueling him. Despite RC giving Carly that amazing response, that amazing advice, Carly just dismisses it. In the arc, Cliffjumper watches RC and Carly. He reveals to Jazz that he does feel guilty about not pulling the trigger on Starscream, because Carly hasn't spoken to him ever since. Jazz tries to reassure him by telling him there's no shame in not pulling a trigger, especially during war. Meanwhile, Optimus and Ratchet are visiting Spike. At some point, Spike seems to have been told about his father's sacrifice, and has been refusing to talk ever since then. Optimus tries to get him to talk, but Spike makes it clear he isn't mad at him or blame him for his father's death. He just needs more time. On their way back to the Ark, Ratchet reminds Optimus that Sparky's sacrifice was his choice, but Optimus still blames himself and wants to make it up to Spike in some way. Suddenly, Optimus sees a vision of himself holding a baby and becomes disoriented and drives himself off the road, crashing into the forest. When Ratchet asks what happened, he answers he doesn't know. This is Optimus experiencing Sparky's memories. Now hear me out here, but what if Sparky is still alive? Because his soul has become one with the Matrix. There's an episode in the G1 cartoon called Autobot Spike, where Spike created a transformer he called Autobot X. When the Decepticons had attacked and Spike got injured and became comatose, the doctors needed Spike's mind to be transferred somewhere else so they could operate on his fragile body. Wheeljack and Sparkplug transferred Spike's mind into Autobot X's body. Now what if Sparky's soul gets somehow extracted from the Matrix and put into a Transformer? In the universe of the Transformers, you all know what I'm putting down isn't so far-fetched. Let me know what you all think in the comments below. They return to the Ark and Wheeljack informs all the Autobots he's having a hard time restoring the rest of the Autobots and repairing everyone, including himself, because he accidentally activated the remaining part of Skywarp's neural cortex. And since he's a part of Teletran 1, he is repeatedly locking him out of Teletran's repair systems. So he has been forced to repair everyone manually, which has taken forever. Optimus asks him to work as fast as he can because they finally have the upper hand on the Decepticons and need to end their reign of destruction on Earth. Wheeljack points out in order to find the Decepticons, they need eyes in the sky. Optimus responds, "I have a plan for that." He opens up a nearby room in the Ark where Jetfire's body lies and says, "Steel yourself, Decepticons. We are coming for you." What's up everyone? James here, coming back at you with another video. And in this video, the Decepticons shall rise from defeat. I even wore my Decepticon tank in honor of this momentous occasion and in honor of our Lord, my boy, Soundwave, leading the Decepticons. Now, what I want you guys to do before we get into this video, I want you to hit that like button, then I want you to comment below, "All hail Soundwave, Soundwave, Soundwave." Now, with all that out of the way, let's get into it. Okay, so this opens with Carly taking Spike to this lake near Farmingham Hospital, thinking some fresh air will help with his recovery. What's sad here is that Carly asks Spike how he feels, and he answers he feels empty and didn't realize how much he needed his dad until he was gone. That all he thinks about every time he sees the Transformers now is how he has no body or even ashes to bury his dad, just like his brother Jimmy. Cliffjumper offers Spike and Carly some colas, but Carly refuses to even look at him. Spike attempts to mend their relationship, pointing out to Carly that Cliffjumper saved her life, but she doesn't want to hear it. She tells Cliffjumper she doesn't want to speak to him because he had the power to end Starscream's reign of terror for good. That he killed so many innocent people, even his friend Bumblebee, and he still chose not to pull the trigger. Honestly, those are some of the same reasons why I particularly didn't like Cliffjumper not killing Starscream. From here we go to Cybertron. Elita 1 is carrying Ultra Magnus, trying to escape Shockwave's tower, but she's having difficulty finding an exit. This is where we learn the depth of torture Magnus has endured. He tells Elita that he's been tortured by Shockwave over 150 years, day and night, and begs her to kill him. Elita apologizes for taking so long to save him, which is why she refuses to let him go now. However, if the Decepticons find them, she promises to Ultra Magnus that she will end both their sparks before they're captured. On Earth, in the Pacific Ocean, the USS Henry Harrison receives some company. Soundwave and his Decepticons strike. One interesting thing that happens here is Thundercracker grabs the ship's captain, and I thought he was about to pull a Starscream and squish him. However, he doesn't do that. He suddenly lets him go, because he pities how fragile humans are, and tells the captain and the crew to leave, allowing them to escape on the lifeboats. When Soundwave asks him, "What are you doing?" Thundercracker answers, "They can't hurt us." This shows us that Thundercracker lives by his own warrior code, where it seems like he doesn't kill or fight those he doesn't consider an equal, which is refreshing, honestly, to see within the Decepticons. Though Soundwave agrees with him, he responds, "There can be no witnesses." Soundwave destroys the lifeboats, killing the entire crew. At the Ark, Wheeljack continues to have difficulty gaining access to Teletran's repair systems, because the remaining part of Skywarp's spark that's a part of it keeps blocking him out of the system. Optimus asks if he can separate Skywarp from it, Wheeljack answers he can't because the Decepticons hardwired Skywarp and Teletran together. Without Skywarp, Teletran ceases to function. Wheeljack realizes that this was probably Soundwave's failsafe plan in case they did take back the Ark. This shows Soundwave's strategic mind, and I love that, because you all know that's my boy. Wheeljack pulls up the footage of what the Decepticons did to Skywarp. Although Wheeljack points out he's an enemy, Optimus feels sorry for Skywarp once he sees what they did to him. Suddenly, freaking Carly shows up with an RPG aimed at Skywarp, wanting him dead for good. Optimus tries to talk some sense to her, explaining how he understands Skywarp has done many terrible things, but they need him to heal the rest of the Autobots. Carly puts the rocket launcher down, but accidentally pulls the trigger and it fires. RC comes swooping in and puts herself in the rocket's trajectory and takes the hit. Now, whether because he is grateful to be saved or is just paying them back his way, Skywarp surprisingly fixes Wheeljack's legs. Optimus uses this mishap as a teaching moment for Carly, which she totally calls out and storms off. Moments later, RC follows Carly to her van, and Carly apologizes for her actions. She mentions to RC how she's confused about why the Autobots don't act like the powerful, badass robots that they are. RC responds that they weren't always like that. Before the war on Cybertron, they were all scattered and lost until Optimus brought them together. That what Optimus desires most of all is peace, and the losses he's endured in pursuit of that could fill a chasm. Sometime later, as Optimus rests, he sees more of Sparky's memories. He awakens, still unsure of what's happening to him. He ends up checking up on the newly restored, or I guess you could say resurrected, Jetfire. However, what's sad about this is that Jetfire is legitimately blind and mode locked into his vehicle mode, and is frightened by it all. He asks Optimus why he's in this state, and why didn't he let him rest. Optimus answers that there was enough of his spark left to bring him back, but unfortunately they are low on Energon and having trouble with Teletran's repair systems, so they couldn't bring him back to his complete form. He wished he could have let him rest. However, because of their current situation in this war, they're in desperate need of transportation around the world so they can save it. Despite Optimus justifying why he's brought him back and being very apologetic about it all, Jetfire views it as Optimus seeing him as nothing but a resource to be used. When Optimus goes to leave because of how bad he feels over the situation, Jetfire pleads with him to stay because he doesn't want to feel alone in the darkness. Returning to the Decepticons, they have sunk the Henry Harrison, bringing it to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. Thundercracker asks Soundwave what they're doing, and I love his response and plan. He says Starscream had no vision, no plan, Thundercracker. His short-sightedness was only outpaced by his mindless need for violence. It is time we begin the long process of truly taking this rich planet for our own devices. We must use every resource at our disposal. The humans have their most advanced energy on this vessel, nuclear power. We will need it to awaken a vessel of our own. Soundwave had the Constructicons unearth the Decepticons' ship, the Nemesis. When the Decepticons venture inside the ship to begin the repair process, they come across the ship's brig, where they have someone in prison. Now, they assumed this bot had escaped when the Nemesis crashed, but that's not the case. They're still here and are trying to break their way out. Soundwave orders Thundercracker to unlock the brig, and who comes smashing their way out of it is Astro Train, who is very, very pissed off. He yells, "Where is he?" He grips Thundercracker's face, demanding an answer from Soundwave. When Soundwave answers, "We do not know," Astrotrain calls him a liar and throws Thundercracker against the wall and adds insult to injury by stomping his face in. He says, "I will have the one who put me in prison. I will tear his fuel and drink Energon from his core." Soundwave makes it clear that he doesn't know. So Astrotrain demands that he swears on his life that when they find the one that imprisoned him, he's all his. Soundwave responds, "When we find him, I swear Megatron will be yours to do with as you will. So it's clear to us that when Megatron returns, the Decepticons aren't going to be giving him a warm welcome. Back at the Ark, the Autobots detect the Decepticons' activation of the Nemesis. So Optimus orders the Autobots to board Jetfire. Carly insists on tagging along, but Optimus tells her they can't be fighting the Decepticons and worrying about her safety at the same time, that she isn't a warrior. RC offers to make Carly her Iron Apprentice. When Carly asks what that is, RC explains that it is a sacred bond normally between two Cybertronians, one older and one younger. Now they will have that bond. She says it marks the beginning of a clan, what you call a family. It's what Ultra Magnus and I had long ago. Carly asks where you go I go, even into a fight? RC answers, that's right. Optimus orders both of them to stay with Wheeljack and defend the Ark and watch over Spike. Optimus and the rest of the Autobots roll out. I absolutely love the fact that Daniel Warren Johnson has introduced clans into Transformers lore and this Iron Apprentice bond that we've witnessed here. Back at the Nemesis, Soundwave says to Thundercracker, the Nemesis will never fly again. It's too big and needs too much Energon, but we only need her antenna. It's time to call in reinforcements. Soundwave has contacted Shockwave. Let the Wave Bros' reign of terror begin. What's up everyone? James here coming at you with another video. Another Transformers video. Now in this video, oh my gosh, Soundwave and Shockwave, aka the Wave Bros, that's what I call them, are going to dominate the Autobots. And it's glorious. Glorious. I hope you enjoy that video, and make sure before you continue this video, you pause it, you hit the like button, and you comment below, all hail the Wave Bros. Make sure you do that. Now with that out of the way, let's get into it. Okay, so this picks up with the Autobots closing in on the Decepticons' location. And Cliffjumper seems to be piloting Jetfire, so Jetfire really is just a husk. He doesn't even have control of his own body. As that's going on, Shockwave and Soundwave begin their plans. Shockwave says, my long-lost brothers are now found. Look at the abundance you have stumbled upon. We will soon be celebrating in the halls of my stronghold. Cybertron's new dawn is upon us. Soundwave replies, agreed, dear brother. Let us begin. He activates the Nemesis, which creates this huge whirlpool in the ocean. Optimus immediately notices something isn't right and tells Cliffjumper to pull up, but it's already too late. The Nemesis fires this massive beam into the sky that hits Jetfire, causing the Autobots to crash at the bottom of the ocean. That's just the beginning of their problems. They end up crash landing right in front of the Constructicons, where they discover the Decepticons have built and activated a space bridge. The Constructicons open fire on them. Cliffjumper, who landed in front of the space bridge, witnesses the devil himself walking through the space bridge portal, Shockwave. He says, the rabble-rousers are still fighting, I see. All Optimus responds is, oh no. Shockwave calls the Autobots scum who are interrupting their glorious mission. He transforms into his gun mode, Soundwave wields him, and says, let us be done with this foolishness. He fires at Cliffjumper, but Ratchet jumps in front of Cliffjumper and takes the blast for him. The Autobots' medic falls. Optimus gets pissed and gives Soundwave a boot to the face, knocking him back. Shockwave transforms and says, Optimus Prime, I see not much has changed. Still sniveling, still slimy, and still weak. Optimus claps back with the coldest response. He says, weak. Did you forget our last meeting? Shall I make you cry for mercy a second time? They charge toward each other. Meanwhile, in Farmingham, Carly, Wheeljack, and Arcee are heading to the dam to fix the Energon turbine. Initially, I was going to skip this, but something very interesting happens here. Suddenly, they're fired upon by citizens, or more veterans, or both, who have taken up arms and formed a militia. So it seems like people are taking a stand and fighting against these giant robots who've caused death and destruction. This is honestly something I can easily see happening in the real world if giant robots arrived here and did the same thing. Carly stands between them and clarifies to the militia who recognize her that these are the good robots. Wheeljack promises they mean them no harm. At Farmingham Hospital, Spike meets with the doctor, who tells him that he doesn't have great news for him when it comes to his recovery. The bullet he was shot with grazed his spine. When Spike asks if he'll ever walk again, the doctor answers that he's learned never to say never, especially when they just learned giant robots exist. However, before he can fully answer Spike's question, Astrotrain attacks the hospital. He announces that he's come for Spike. The one thing that surprised me here was when the doctor comes out of the hospital asking Astrotrain to stop because there are children and innocent people here, Astrotrain replies that he understands his pain and that he doesn't wish to hurt lesser beings, but he was sent here by his leader, Soundwave. So, like Thundercracker, Astrotrain has a warrior code that he follows as well. However, he takes out his blaster and threatens that to fulfill his duties, he is willing to wipe out everyone in the hospital in one blast. Spike wheels himself out of the hospital. The doctor tells him to go back inside, but Spike responds that he can't do much, but what he can do is save everyone in the hospital right now. Astrotrain admits that he finds Spike's bravery impressive and takes him. Back at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, Optimus is in a 3v1. Jazz tries to hop into his system, but Scrapper bulldozes him out of the fight. Shockwave lifts Optimus and says, "You fought dirty last time we fought. I have learned much since that day. Your ending shall be slow and brutal." He hits Optimus with a pile driver, which puts him down for the count. Shockwave gloats at how he has defeated the great Optimus Prime. Meanwhile, on Cybertron, Elita 1 carrying Ultra Magnus is still trying to find a way out of Shockwave's fortress. She ends up being discovered by the Combaticons. Vortex tries to get the drop on her, but she takes him out. Still looking for a way out, she comes across a corridor with a pink light emanating from it, and decides to run toward it. Magnus tries to talk her out of it because they don't know where it leads to. Elita says, "No choice, old friend. Someday we can die in oil and glory, but I made a promise to you, and I intend to keep it." She ends up passing through the same portal Shockwave used to come to Earth. Luckily, she runs right into him as he was about to finish off Optimus. Elita sees Optimus and is confused as to where she is. She notices the Combaticons are beginning to come through the portal. Just as they are about to merge and form Bruticus, she grabs Optimus's ion blaster and fires at the portal. Onslaught gets through, but Brawl gets sliced in half when the portal closes. Soundwave has had enough. He fires on the Autobots and orders the Decepticons to finish them. Cliffjumper and Jazz get blasted. Optimus calls out to them. Elita insists they escape, but Optimus refuses to leave without Jazz and Cliffjumper. At that moment, he gets hit by a stray energy blast. Elita, carrying Magnus and dragging Optimus, says they're gone. We have to go. Transform and roll out. Soundwave orders the Decepticons to chase after them, but Shockwave belays that order and says to let them go. He insists that they focus on fixing the portal and points out that the Autobots are nothing compared to their plan. He discovers that Cliffjumper and Jazz are still alive and tells them that he plans on experimenting on them to see how the years on Earth have affected them. When Thundercracker questions what kind of experiments, Shockwave replies, "Oh yes, painful experiments." He drags Cliffjumper as he screams for his freaking life. As Astrotrain with Spike approaches the Pacific, Spike asks about the beam of light coming out of the ocean. Astrotrain reveals to him that the Decepticons plan to strip Earth of all of its resources in order to save Cybertron from the disease that currently plagues it. Now, what disease is he referring to? We don't find out. He could be referring to the Autobots as the disease, or maybe there's an actual disease destroying Cybertron's resources. The revelations don't end there. Astro Train also tells Spike that Soundwave plans on using him as a gift to Shockwave, a human subject for him to experiment on. It will solidify their partnership, because Soundwave may rule the Decepticons, but Shockwave is the leader of Cybertron. Suddenly, this device attaches to Astro Train. It shuts off his power and sends him crashing onto the shore. Someone breaks into Astro Train and says, "Your name is Spike, right? My name is Beachcomber, and I'm here to rescue you." I know the Beachcomber fans are so excited that he's finally appeared. What's up everyone, James here, and I am back at you with another Transformers video. If you are new here and need to catch up on everything that's gone on in the Transformers and the Energon universe, the playlist is right here and right below the like button. Now, in this video, we're going to learn two things. One of them, you guys already know if you're longtime Transformers fans, but Shockwave proves once again why he's the most evil Decepticon ever. And the second thing we're going to learn is where in God's name has Beachcomber been this entire time? Before we get into the video, make sure you hit that like button. And other than that, enjoy, because it's going to be awesome. Let's go. So this opens with Beachcomber explaining what happened to him and where he's been to Spike. He says millions of years ago, the Decepticons attacked the Autobots on the Ark while in Earth's orbit. So it seems like Daniel Warren Johnson is fixing the mistake he made early on in this series, where he had the Transformer state that the Autobot Decepticon war had been going on for 200 years. Now he's changing it to what was initially implied in the Void Rival series, when Jetfire said he had been stranded for millions of years. Now, we will see more of this Battle of the Ark in the Energon Universe special focusing on Megatron, which I will cover soon, that's coming. Anyways, Skywarp had thrown Beachcomber out of an opening on the ship, and luckily for him, he didn't end up drifting endlessly in space, but landed on the moon. I really love this image of him just staring at Earth from the moon. He was in awe of Earth's beauty so much, in fact, that he just sat there and stayed on the moon for 1,000,000 years. And he also didn't have anywhere else to go. But anyways, he came across the Apollo 11 moon landing that took place on July 20th, 1969. He hitched a ride back to Earth. Once on Earth, while searching for the Ark, he found Earth to be just as beautiful on the inside as it was on the outside. He came across the wildlife of Earth and was astonished by it all. He eventually found the Ark and saw all the Autobots and Decepticons offline. And just as he was about to activate Teletran 1 and begin repairing them, he stopped himself. He decided to leave them there. He feared that if he brought them back online, they would begin the war again, and that war would bring destruction and death to Earth, just as it did to Cybertron. He believed leaving them there to sleep forever would assure Earth's safety and maintain the peace he found in it. Spike asks him if he's been alone ever since then, and Beachcomber answers no. He shows Spike that he has created a bond with the wildlife of Earth. He tells Spike that he saved him because he deserves to be saved and protected just like them. Now Astro Train interjects, calling Beachcomber a fool. Pissed off that he has him chained down, Beachcomber offers some Energon to him as a peace offering, which Astro Train, to no surprise, refuses. Now, a big reason why Beachcomber is fascinated by Earth's beauty and wildlife, which I feel like Daniel Warren Johnson should have stated in this issue for people new to Transformers, is because he's a geologist. But going on a quick tangent here, let's say he's not a geologist in the Energon universe. I would really like him to have that role, because if you've really paid attention to this series so far, you would see that most of the Autobots have a role within the team. We know Wheeljack is the engineer and tech guy. We know Ratchet is the medic. We know RC is the sharpshooter. We know Jetfire is the scouter and transportation. We know Optimus Prime is the leader and strategist. I mean, the only person who doesn't have a role is Cliffjumper. Unless I missed it, comment down below your thoughts on that. Astro Train reveals to Beachcomber he was taking Spike to Shockwave. When Spike asks Beachcomber if he's heard of him, Beachcomber answers every Autobot has. He is cold, calculating, and a deadly strategist. He likes taking his time when pulling Autobots apart. Spike informs him of the Decepticons' plan to harvest Earth, which puts Beachcomber in quite a dilemma, because he tells Spike he promised himself long ago not to hurt anyone or anything ever again, that he wanted no part in the Autobot and Decepticon war. On the Nemesis, Shockwave informs Soundwave that the Constructicons have already repaired the space bridge to Cybertron. He then asks him what he's doing, and Soundwave answers that he must repair Ravage. Shockwave becomes filled with disdain because Soundwave is wasting time repairing, in his eyes, what he would call a pet, when they're so close to victory. He grabs Ravage and tells him he can build stronger versions of his Recordicons. I was so surprised that Danny Warren Johnson chose that obscure name instead of mini cassettes, but I like it. Shockwave plans to put Ravage's body into the shredder, which I was so surprised Soundwave was allowing him to do. However, something outside the ship distracts Shockwave, and he just tosses Ravage's body aside and has Soundwave follow him. What distracted Shockwave was this family of humpback whales that he tells Soundwave he finds to be majestic. At that moment, Scrapper informs him the feeder is ready. We see the feeder is this massive machine, and what it does is so crazy. The Decepticons activate it, and it literally sucks in the ocean, including the family of humpback whales, and all other sea life with it. Shockwave looks on, enjoying the death this machine has brought. At the dam, Wheeljack has successfully brought the Energon turbine back online. Alita 1 and Optimus arrive. Wheeljack doesn't recognize who they're carrying with them, but Arcee does. She's shocked that Ultra Magnus is still alive. However, this somewhat happy reunion doesn't last long. When Wheeljack says Ratchet will get him fixed up, Optimus informs him that Ratchet has fallen. Wheeljack, saddened by this news, storms out of the room. Meanwhile, on the Nemesis, Shockwave visits the chained up Jazz and Cliffjumper. He tells them that he plans on talking to them about their time on Earth, and shows them his array of tools he's brought with him to help with that. Soundwave and Thundercracker leave, as Shockwave begins torturing them. The interesting thing that we learn from Soundwave and Thundercracker's conversation is that they're not entirely happy about working with Shockwave. Thundercracker finds his tactics to be dishonorable, whereas Soundwave finds them to be brutal and simplistic. However, Soundwave admits that as much as they dislike him, they need him since he currently controls Cybertron. Unbeknownst to them, Onslaught is listening in on their conversation. Thundercracker suggests that they get Shockwave's help in mounting an assault on the Ark in order to save Skywarp, but Soundwave dismisses the idea. He says, "You are a soldier of the Decepticon army. Your life is mine. Do not forget it." Man, I love Soundwave as the leader of the Decepticons. He is ruling with an iron fist. Back at the dam, Alita tells Optimus that what Shockwave did to Magnus, he'll do to Jazz and Cliffjumper. When Optimus says they have to get them, Alita responds that it took her an eternity to get Magnus, and lost many in the process. She kind of throws shade at Optimus, telling him they could have used him back then, and could have used his help eons ago, especially when things got bad. When the Decepticons took over Cybertron and took Magnus, he had already left at that point. Optimus tries to explain that he was trapped on Earth, and that his leaving was for the good of Cybertron. However, his explanation doesn't matter to her. She responds that there is no good on Cybertron, and no Energon anymore. Only Decepticon rule as their people are starving and enslaved, while he's here enjoying his new paradise. That Shockwave will harvest this planet to fuel Cybertron and the Decepticon army. Optimus replies, "We must stop him. Will you join me?" Back at the Nemesis, Shockwave gathers the Decepticons and announces using their small tech to gather all the resources of Earth would take a century. He says, "Our world is on the edge of devastation, and we must move faster." He uses the Energon gathered by the feeder to reactivate the space bridge, but uses it on a much grander scale. He uses the full power of the space bridge to bring Cybertron to Earth. As Cybertron fills the sky, Beachcomber and Spike look to the sky in horror. Shockwave says, "Let the harvest begin." Shockwave has brought death to Earth. You're about to witness the most pissed off Optimus Prime so far in the Energon universe, and it's awesome. What's up everyone, James here, and I hope you're excited to see the finale of this second arc. Make sure you hit that like button, and let's get into it. So this opens on the arc, with Carly watching on the ship's monitors the Autobots battle with the Decepticons, and she sees Cliffjumper is the Decepticons' hostage. On the battlefield, Shockwave transforms into his gun mode for Soundwave to carry, and says, "Decepticons, let us be done with this Autobot blight forever." The Autobots are surrounded, but they aren't backing down. There is just blast fire coming from all directions, it's nuts. The Autobots wonder where Ultra Magnus is, and I hate to tell you all this, but unfortunately, Magnus is not redeeming himself in this issue. He is really gone. What happens next though kind of makes up for that, and it's incredible. Carly hops into her van and drives through Skywarp's portal. At the same time, Wheeljack asks Optimus about the charges, and Optimus answers that Alita planted them, but he doesn't want to trigger them with Cliffjumper so close to the Nemesis. Out of nowhere, Carly arrives and yells on the battlefield, "When are you all gonna learn? I'm here to stay, and I'm here to fight." She drives right off the Nemesis and rams right into Soundwave, freeing Cliffjumper from his grasp. Cliffjumper ends up on top of her van, and Carly apologizes for not being there for him. This happy reunion doesn't last long though, because Devastator smashes Carly's van. Optimus takes advantage of Carly's diversion and says, "Autobots, let's get our fallen brother. Charge!" The Autobots roll out. Luckily, Carly was left unscathed from Devastator's attack. Cliffjumper manages to pull her out of the van, but his arm is stuck. Devastator straight up punts Cliffjumper along with the remains of Carly's van. Man, Cliffjumper can't catch a break, because Devastator's kick sends him flying through Shockwave's portal to Cybertron. On Cybertron, as the Combaticons are about to go through the portal to join the fight, Cliffjumper ends up being slammed right into them, which I guess is a good thing. God, this issue is so good. And it's about to get even better, because let me tell you guys how awesome Optimus is. While Devastator is gloating, Optimus jumps into the whirlpool surrounding the Nemesis. Using it to get into Devastator's face, he blasts him right in the face with Megatron's fusion cannon. He yells, "Now Alita!" Alita drives up to Devastator in her vehicle mode, wraps her hook line around Devastator's legs, causing the Combiner to fall right on top of Shockwave's harvester. Now, without the endless supply of Energon, this disconnects the supply of it that was feeding the space bridge. Wheeljack reports to Optimus that Cybertron is beginning to go back through the portal, returning to its place in the galaxy. However, he also reports the Nemesis's beam is active, which means the portal is still active. Shockwave uses it to retreat, vowing to bring back reinforcements. Optimus chases after him, but Wheeljack tells him they should just use the charges and blow up the Nemesis, because it would send Cybertron back right now. Optimus responds, not yet, because he refuses to leave Cliffjumper behind again. On Cybertron, Shockwave orders the Combaticons to kill Cliffjumper, but at that moment, Vortex looks behind him and sees Optimus and says, "Oh shit." Optimus smashes his face into the ground and proceeds to savagely injure and beat down the rest of the Combaticons. This might be my third favorite Optimus Prime moment in the Energon universe so far. He is not playing any games. The Combaticons are so terrified of him that they run away. Shockwave calls them cowards and orders them to stand and fight. Optimus approaches him, saying, "Come on then." When Shockwave threatens to kill Cliffjumper if he comes any closer, Optimus straight up blasts off his cannon arm before he can even finish his threat. Optimus is about to beat the brakes off of Shockwave. because he tosses aside his ion blaster and says to Shockwave, "This is all you do, Shockwave? Ratchet, Magnus, life. All you do is take away good, take away life." Optimus proceeds to give Shockwave the beating of his life with his bare hands. Now, this isn't the crazy part. What is while he is gripping Shockwave's head, he experiences that vision he had before of him holding a baby, until it turns into a crazy nightmare, a possible vision of the future. He sees his hands as claws, while wires cover and consume the baby. Now, what if Optimus is seeing himself as Nemesis Prime? That would be insane. Optimus loses control of himself and he crushes Shockwave's head. The Devil Transformer is dead. Optimus quickly regains his senses, but he is horrified by what he's done. What's interesting is Alita shows up, having witnessed this, and tells him that his old self is returning. But Optimus responds that he isn't like that anymore. So at some point, maybe we'll learn all about Optimus's dark and rageful side. Optimus notices Cybertron is almost done returning to its galaxy, so he tells Cliffjumper and Alita they must return to Earth. Optimus, while carrying Cliffjumper, says, "Let's go home." But when he's about to step through the portal, out of nowhere, Alita destroys it and replies, "You are home, Optimus. The Autobot resistance needs you here. We can use all this Energon taken together." Optimus refuses because it's Energon taken from life on Earth. When Optimus tries to activate the charges, Alita tells him not to bother because she never set them in the first place. This is where the debate of how far are you willing to go to save your home and those you love happens between these two. Optimus asks Alita, "Are you willing to feed Cybertron with the blood of Earth?" Alita answers, "Yes, especially when it's dying. Do you think I want this? Want it to force your hand? So many have died, and their deaths have to mean something. This could be that something." Optimus points Megatron's fusion cannon at the Energon tanks and replies, "Earth needs me. Earth needs us." Alita tries to plead with him. She says, "Your people need you. I need you. Don't abandon us again." Optimus responds, "I'm sorry, Alita," and he fires at the tanks. The Energon explodes, creating a massive blast that severs the connection between the Nemesis and Shockwave's fortress, closing the portal. One thing Optimus didn't account for, though, was that this blast took a massive chunk of Cybertron, leaving it in Earth's galaxy. After recovering from the blast, Alita says, "You chose Earth over us." This massive chunk of Cybertron begins falling into Earth's atmosphere along with Optimus. He is burning up, just being engulfed in flames. He says, "If this is the end of my spark, then I thank the Primes that this will be my last sight." He is taken back by Earth's beauty. However, this is not the end of Optimus Prime, because Beachcomber riding his surfboard shows up. He rode up the whirlpool current created by the Nemesis and saves Optimus. Notice that Optimus has lost Megatron's fusion cannon arm. Maybe Wheeljack though will be able to repair it, but maybe not. As this piece of Cybertron falls into Earth's ocean, Optimus asks himself, "What have I done?" There are going to be major consequences because of Optimus's decision. He might have just given Earth access to Cybertronian tech, he hurt and betrayed Alita, at least in her eyes, let Cybertron continue to die, and we have no idea what the hell happened to Cliffjumper. This finale was awesome. Now, before I end the video, I want to propose one theory to you all. We saw Shockwave clearly dead, but what if that wasn't the real Shockwave? Hear me out. Some of you have commented on this, and I've seen it online on forums. Shockwave was definitely emotional in this series, which, as you know, is not the purely logical being we're used to knowing. So what if Daniel Warren Johnson is treating Shockwave like DC's Brainiac or Marvel's Ultron? where Shockwave has created duplicates of himself. But the hiccup he's having with his clones is they act like they're the real Shockwave, or maybe just act with emotion over time. Either way, maybe the real Shockwave is alive and hidden on Cybertron, or somewhere else in the galaxy. Let me know what you all think about that. I cannot wait for the next issue where we will get Starscream's origin. The psychotic Starscream gets a tragic origin story in this video. What's up everyone, James here, and we return with Skybound Transformers. Make sure you hit that like button. So this opens with the end of Soundwave and Starscream's fight. I shouldn't call it a fight, it was more like Soundwave giving Starscream the beatdown of his life. If you are new here, I'll have a link to the playlist at the end of this video. Soundwave had ripped out Starscream's guts and tossed his body over the cliff. Initially, we thought Starscream had fallen to his death, but we see here he landed on some ground below, just narrowly avoiding the pool of lava. At that moment, beaten, broken, and delirious, Starscream becomes filled with memories from his past. We go to a flashback on Cybertron, where Starscream's friends, Genvo and Jetfire, call him by his original name, Yoktar. Now I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly because I couldn't find any correct pronunciation anywhere online, so feel free to correct me in the comments below. Not like one of you won't do it anyways. So what's cool about this is that Skybound took this name directly from Jim Shooter's and the great Denny O'Neil's original Transformers treatment back when they were developing the story for the toy line. I'll actually put a link in the pinned comment below of Jim Shooter's secret origin of the Transformers story on his website. So for the rest of this video, during these flashbacks, I'll be calling Starscream Yoktar. Now, Jetfire being close friends with Starscream was hinted at in the first issue. Their friendship, or rivalry depending on the continuity, has always been a well-established concept within Transformers lore. Their friendship began all the way back to the G1 show. In the episode Fire in the Sky, they were shown as friends and colleagues before the war broke out. Also, their friendship is one of the highlights for me in IDW's Transformers Shattered Glass series, and I'll have a link to that as well at the end of this video. We've covered that entire series on the channel. What is a significant change is this other bot, Genvo, being included in their friendship and origins. He is a new Transformers character that Daniel Warren Johnson is using to create a fresh origin for Starscream, and the way it's done is incredible. Jetfire and Genvo both urge Yoktar to stop working so they can all see the passing of something that happens once every 200 years, especially since this is Jetfire's last night on Cybertron before he goes on his mission. The trio flies to Moonbase 2 in order to get the best view of the passing. As they sit and wait, they discuss the fighting between the Autobots and Decepticons. Starscream mentions that his brothers have refused to join his side. We don't know if he's referring to his fellow Seeker brothers, Thundercracker and Skywarp, but if he is referring to them, then that makes the scene of him and Soundwave ripping apart Skywarp disturbing, tragic, and shows just how far gone he is. Genvo reveals that he has joined the Decepticons and tells Jetfire and Starscream they should join as well, because they would make an incredible team, and he mentions that the leader is unlike anyone he has ever met before. Jetfire refuses, telling him that he has chosen his path. His mission is to traverse the stars with maps Yoktar laid out and find a way to save Cybertron. Now, Starscream being the one who created the maps for Jetfire is a new detail. I do wish in this issue we got to see him create these maps, along with scenes of him just being a scientist on Cybertron, because there's nothing in this issue that outright states he is a scientist. It's kind of implied or assumed, but maybe we'll see those things in the next issue since this is only part 1. Genvo responds to Jetfire saying he believes that there isn't anything out there. Now when he goes to smash these nearby creatures called Turbosex because they annoy him, Starscream stops him and explains that they're harmless, beautiful creatures who help clean the gears of Cybertron's moons, making their lives run smoother. So as we see here, the psychotic, brutal, and twisted Starscream we've gotten to know very well in this series was once Yoktar, a kind scientist who cared about life and his friends. Now the thing they were waiting for arrives. We see the passing of a huge titanic robot flying overhead, and this robot is Omega Supreme. This is definitely the biggest we've ever seen Omega Supreme or any Omega Sentinel depicted. He is easily the size of a Titan. Suddenly, Yoktar gets the idea of wanting Omega to see him and his friends, so he breaks into the Cybertronian Defense Force, where we see Kup as a guard for the entrance. Once they successfully get in, Yoktar opens an ammunition depot and uses one of their grenades, hoping to create a big enough explosion for Omega to notice them, which he successfully does. And when Omega notices them, Yoktar waves at him, and Omega waves back. The trio escapes before Kup captures them. Later, Jetfire sets out to leave. Yoktar tries to talk him into staying a few more days for recalculations. However, Jetfire insists on leaving now because every day they wait, Cybertron's demise comes closer. He hugs his two closest friends and says his heartfelt goodbye to them. After he flies off, Yoktar says, "I'm going to miss him." But when Genvo replies, "Don't worry, you still have me around," Yoktar says, "And for that, I'm very thankful for Genvo." This makes the reunion of Jetfire and Starscream in the first issue sad, and really emphasizes the shock and horror he must have felt when he saw just how much his friend had changed into this vicious killer. Sometime later, the war between the Autobots and Decepticons breaks out fully on Cybertron. Yoktar hears explosions, and when he walks outside of his lab, he sees Genvo fighting alongside Shockwave and what could be Overcharge or Blitzwing against the Autobots. Suddenly, a stray missile destroys his lab and he gets caught up in the explosion. Genvo sees this and goes to help him. He tells Yoktar they need to run and that the Autobots came out of nowhere and are on their tails. He and Yoktar are running for their lives, perfectly depicting the chaos of war. Suddenly though, Genvo is shot. Yoktar holds him as he is slowly fading away. Genvo's last words are, "You did it, Yoktar. You yelled at the gods. You screamed the stars into seeing us." He ends up dying in Yoktar's arms. Yoktar replies, screaming, "Genvo, no brother, no." While grieving, Yoktar sees the one responsible for Genvo's death, Optimus Prime and the Autobots. Now we don't know for sure if it was in fact the Autobots, but if it was, what if this is the dark side of Optimus Prime Alita hinted at in the last video? This side of him that was around during the early days of the Great War. Optimus may have been the one who inadvertently created one of the most psychotic Transformers who caused so much death on Earth. The shock of this memory awakens Starscream, bringing us back to the present day. He awakens to his legs being melted off his body. He crawls away from the lava and falls back into unconsciousness. At that moment, this group of humans find him. They chain him up and attempt to hoist him. This group of humans is revealed to be a Mars unit with their own HISS tank. The group's commanding officer says this is a game changer. Now his identity remains hidden from us in this issue. We only get the names of two of his subordinates, Private Martin, the guy drawing here, and Private Raz, the woman on top of the tank. The only thing we learn through their conversation about this commander is when he asks Private Martin if he knows who his father is, he answers, "Yeah, the best to ever do it." The commander replies, "Damn right, a genuine American hero." Now that is a clear evocation of the G.I. Joe's franchise's usual "a real American hero" tagline, which could indicate that this commander's father was possibly a former member of G.I. Joe. Unfortunately for this commander, the HISS tank isn't strong enough to hoist Starscream's body. The chains break, crashing Starscream's body back onto the ground. This commander ends up going off on his unit, complaining about how he's been given command of this lowly unit when his dad was celebrated and worshipped. The guy is really living off the legend of his father. He considers his current position and status embarrassing. But with the power of Starscream within his grasp, he plans to change that. This is definitely going to lead to the resurrection of Starscream. Returning to the flashback, Yoktar carries Genvo's body away from the battlefield. Now he ends up tripping and Genvo's body falls to the ground. Yoktar stares at his body and wonders what's left for him on Cybertron. His work in his lab was destroyed and one of his best friends is dead while the other is off planet exploring for who knows how long and even if he will ever return. At that moment, Megatron approaches and says, "You can join us. You can avenge your friend and your clan. You can be a warrior of the new Decepticon order." Megatron transforms into a tank-like pistol for Yuktar to hold and says, "Tell me, young one, what did your brothers call you?" Inspired by Genvo's dying words, Yuktar answers, "My name is Starscream." Starscream's origin is so good so far, my god. A dying friend's last words being the mechanism used to change his name and identity is poetic. Also, Megatron's pistol mode being a mixture of his classic form and his modern one is actually pretty cool. However, it having tank treads on it makes no sense to me. This makes me theorize, what if Megatron is a double changer? What if he has his classic pistol mode and his tank mode? That would be insane and make him even more dangerous. One of the biggest evils in the Energon universe, Starscream, returns to continue to be the major menace he is. What's up everyone, James here, and I know it's been a while since we covered some Energon universe stuff. Make sure you hit that like button. The first half of this video will be the second part of Starscream's origin story. We covered the first part in the last video. You'll find a link to the playlist at the end of this video. The second half of this video will begin the Decepticon Civil War, and it's incredible. So remember, at the end of the last video, after Yuktar, aka Starscream, witnessed the death of his friend Genvo at the hands of Optimus Prime and the Autobots, Megatron approached and offered him a place in the Decepticon ranks, which he accepted, and Yuktar became Starscream. We're going to begin with what took place after that, which is Starscream's experience as a Decepticon warrior during the early days of the Great War under the command of Megatron. Now, Starscream may have joined the Decepticons because of the Autobots causing Genvo's death, but in this second part of his origin, we learn Megatron is why he became the psychopath he is. In this flashback of the Great War on Cybertron, after taking some Autobots prisoner, Megatron offers them the opportunity to join the Decepticons. But when they refuse, Megatron transforms into his gun mode and orders Starscream to execute them. Starscream hesitates, arguing they're prisoners of war. Megatron makes it clear he doesn't care, and reminds him he needs someone to wield him. So just like in the G1 cartoon, Megatron requires someone else to use him when he transforms. That's the limit of his great power. Starscream tries to resist, saying he doesn't want to do this. Megatron replies, "What you desire matters not. You are mine now. You will obey my command." He forces Starscream to shoot one of the prisoners. The other prisoners, seeing the smoking body of their comrade, start to beg for mercy. Megatron says, "Continue, Starscream, for the Decepticon good." Starscream says to the prisoners, "I'm sorry," and pulls the trigger. This is the point of no return for Starscream's character. This was when the bright-eyed, friendly scientist we met in the last video began his transition into the psychotic, power-hungry monster we know today. Throughout the war, Starscream, wielding Megatron's power, killed more Autobots. Megatron says, "You shall be my executioner, my hand of death. Together we will return Cybertron to its rightful and glorious place among the stars." Now that's the end of Starscream's origin, at least for now. From here we return to the present day with Commander Horton and his Mars team successfully recovering Starscream's body from the volcano they discovered him in. Now, in order to transport him more efficiently, they attach his body to their HISS tank, complete with a remote and a failsafe in case he gets out of line. When Starscream awakens, he is horrified by what they've done to him, and he tries to kill them when they aren't paying attention. Just when he's about to kill Private Raz, he stops himself when Private Martin tells him they saved him from the lava, and shows him his drawing of it. Starscream's response to this is pretty funny. He points his null ray at Martin and says, "My proportions are completely off. Draw me again and do it right this time." Private Clayton grabs the remote and starts reversing Starscream away from them. Another funny thing that happens here is Starscream sees Private Raz's cat and is like, "What is that? I must kill it!" Now, he doesn't get to kill the cat because Raz saves the cat. When Starscream says he needs Energon, Horton offers to help him. However, Starscream rejects his offer, and just when he's about to squish Horton, that's when Horton reveals that they took the precaution of installing explosives in his body while he was unconscious, which is tied to his heartbeat. So if he kills him, those explosives will immediately trigger. So Starscream is forced to set him free. Horton proposes a partnership, which Starscream accepts because when he learns that Horton desires to use him as an offering to his superiors at Mars, basically Destro, because it would help him gain power and a more prominent position, Starscream knows he can manipulate that. So he introduces himself to Horton, and let me tell you guys something. Even though Soundwave gave Starscream the beating of his life, that didn't dull or hurt how full of himself he is. Because after introducing himself, he proclaims he is the greatest Decepticon. Now, this is where the manipulation comes into play. He lies to Horton, saying he has been looking for a, quote, fleshling to partner with, which we know is BS. If he could tear them apart right now, he would. Later, they come across the chained up Astro Train. Surprised to see him, Starscream asks him how he got free from the Nemesis, and Astro Train reveals that Soundwave freed him and promised he would give him Megatron if he joined him. Starscream responds to this, saying that it's all lies because Soundwave would never give up the leader he loves. He's only using him until he doesn't need him anymore, and after that, he'll imprison him again. He points out a perfect example of this is the fact that he's abandoned him on the beach here. Starscream frees Astro Train and tells him he has no love for Megatron, and that he'll actually deliver on the promise of giving him Megatron, unlike Soundwave. When Horton is about to object, the conversation gets interrupted by a piece of Cybertron falling from the sky into the Pacific Ocean. So this is all happening at the same time Optimus Prime was being saved by Beachcomber, and the piece of Cybertron he accidentally blew off is falling into the ocean after destroying Shockwave's Energon reserves along with the space bridge. The piece of Cybertron causes a massive tidal wave. Horton and his team run for their freaking lives. Astro Train suggests to Starscream leaving them to die, which he immediately does. However, Horton sees this and uses the remote to prevent Starscream from boarding Astro Train, and demands he get him and his team off the beach. Starscream just immediately lies and plays it like that's what he was planning on doing. While they're leaving, Astro Train spots something in the ocean, and Starscream sees it's the Combaticons. He ends up saving them. Now this pisses off Horton because he's losing control of the situation. He originally only had Starscream to deal with and keep in line, but now he has several dangerous Transformers to try and keep in line. So he demands Starscream to have Astro Train take them back down to the surface. But before Starscream obliges, a wave hits Astro Train, sending Horton and his team flying through Astro Train, and Horton ends up being knocked unconscious. Sometime later, within the piece of Cybertron in the ocean, Horton awakens and is horrified because he thinks he isn't on Earth anymore, and by what he sees next. And when I first read this issue, I was also horrified. He sees Astro Train and the Combaticons chanting, "All hail Starscream." Starscream has created his own Decepticon faction. He tells them they need to deal with the, quote, evil Soundwave. He is just creating this narrative that Soundwave is the liar, and it's working. He easily brings the Combaticons to his side because remember, Brawl and Onslaught overheard the conversation between Soundwave and Thundercracker, not happy with the fact that they had to ally with Shockwave. So they easily believe Soundwave isn't to be trusted. Horton, seeing this situation is now totally out of his control, grabs the remote and threatens to activate the explosives within Starscream if he doesn't return him and his team to Earth. Starscream responds, "Go right ahead." When Horton activates it, it doesn't work. Private Raz reveals she pulled the explosives out of him because Starscream promised to return them home. She was stupid enough to believe a robot that just tried to kill them earlier. Starscream smashes her body and then proceeds to kill the rest of the team. He fires his null ray at Private Clayton, completely obliterating him. Horton begs for his life, but Starscream says, "You tried to make me a slave, unforgivable. He grabs the remote and runs Horton's body over as he screams, just killing him in the most brutal way. The only one of the Mars team Starscream allows to live is Private Martin. He says, "You shall be the illustrator and witness to my great rise to power. Never again will I be the property of anyone. I will be the master of my own destiny. Prepare yourself, Soundwave. This Earth is mine." This is where we go into the second part of the video. Soundwave and his Decepticon faction in Tacoma, Washington. They're destroying the entire city and massacring the population. Now, we see yet again Thundercracker's warrior code come into play here. Remember, he pities humans and doesn't want to kill beings that are weaker than him. It's not honorable in his eyes. He tells Soundwave that what they're doing is wrong and suggests they head for the chunk of Cybertron and return home. Soundwave explains that this is their new home now, that Earth is a treasure trove of Energon, unlike the husk Cybertron has become, that he doesn't enjoy doing this kind of work, but they've suffered loss after loss because of the Autobots, so they need to end them once and for all, that their one significant weakness is the humans. The death and destruction they're enacting here will draw the Autobots out, giving them an opening to ambush them. After Soundwave tells Thundercracker to continue the unpleasant work, we see Thundercracker point his null ray on a group of humans hiding in this building, and he hesitates. He really doesn't want to do this. He whispers to them to run, and then proceeds to destroy the building they were hiding in. Now, at the end of the last arc, I asked what the hell happened to Cliffjumper after Optimus took out Shockwave's Energon tanks and destroyed the space bridge. Well, that question gets answered. He wakes up still on Cybertron, and ends up being discovered by Blue Streak carrying an injured Warpath. Remember, Warpath was a part of Alita's team that died helping her infiltrate Shockwave's fortress in order to save Ultra Magnus. Now, how he is still alive after seemingly being obliterated by the Decepticons, apparently Danny Warren Johnson has expressed regret over killing the entire team off so early and suddenly, so this is him walking back that decision. I'm just slightly confused as to why he chose Warpath and not Cup or Huffer. Especially Cup, I would argue he is the bigger fan favorite out of the three. Suddenly, Blur pops up and informs them of incoming Decepticons. Now, I'm probably in the minority, but I dislike how G1 Blur speaks. I like everything else about him, like how his speed is portrayed, but that's like the one thing I don't like is the way he speaks. As the group leaves, Warpath asks about the others, only for Blue Streak to sadly inform him that they're gone, while he glances back at Cup's body. They come across a scout, one of the Conehead Seekers. This could be Dirge, Ramjet, or Thrust, but it doesn't matter, because Blue Streak sneaks up behind him and stabs him in the back. And it doesn't end there. He and Blur rip out any remaining Energon from his body. This whole thing shocks Cliffjumper. He mentions they've changed. Blue Streak responds to him that after he and the rest of the Autobots left, things got worse for them. He also implies that being with Optimus made him soft, because why does he have any feelings towards what they just did to a Decepticon? When Cliffjumper responds, Optimus taught me a different and better way. Alita interrupts and asks, and when was the last time he truly had to survive? So this tells us that, like the Decepticons right now, the Autobots are being split apart. Optimus Prime's Autobots on Earth, and Alita 1's Autobots on Cybertron. Time will tell if we'll see, though, an Autobot civil war take place. Speaking of Optimus, back on Earth at the Ark, Arcee apologizes to Optimus for letting her anger and hate get the best of her on their last mission. She tells him she plans to leave to find Ultra Magnus, and pay him back for saving her, and also make amends for nearly costing them their lives on that last mission. Optimus beautifully assures her that he will always be proud of her no matter what, and gives her his blessing. Joining Arcee on her quest, though, is going to be Carly, Spike, and Beachcomber. Now, Optimus asks Beachcomber to join the fight against the Decepticons, but he refuses to break his non-violence oath, and suggests the Autobots leave the planet. However, Optimus points out that the Decepticons wouldn't follow even if they left. They'll destroy Earth. Even though Optimus makes an astute point, it doesn't sway Beachcomber. He just says, "Do what you must do, and I will do what I must too." As RC and company depart, Wheeljack informs Optimus of radio chatter regarding the Decepticons' attack, so Optimus, Wheeljack, and Jazz head off to stop them. While en route, Wheeljack informs Optimus that he had done scans of his mind, but could not find anything regarding the mysterious visions he's been having. Optimus theorizes, like we did, that it might be coming from the Matrix, which should be, in his words, empty, since he used all of its energy to repair himself after Sparky's sacrifice. Wheeljack theorizes that since the Matrix has never interfaced with any organic being, the merging of mechanical and organic might be causing errors in Optimus Prime's neural net. Notice that Optimus only told Wheeljack of the visions he's been having, not him losing control when he killed Shockwave. The group reaches Tacoma, Washington, and are shocked at the sight of the city burning. They begin to rescue who they can where they can, but here's the problem. In the eyes of the surviving humans here, they're just more evil robots that are here to kill them. They know nothing of the distinction between Autobots and Decepticons. So they and the military that's arrived here attack the Autobots. Optimus gets shot from behind by a tank, forcing him to drop the bus filled with survivors he and Wheeljack were trying to save. When Optimus sees their dead bodies, he loses it. He gets hit with that disturbing vision again of a claw holding a human child being infested by wiring. He launches at the tank and starts tearing it apart until Jazz shakes him out of his trance. Luckily, Jazz snapped him out of it before he harmed any humans. The Autobots leave before the rest of the military arrive. Watching from a distance is Soundwave, Scrapper, and Laserbeak. Scrapper suggests attacking the Autobots while they're on the run, but Soundwave reveals that he plans to wait to see where they regroup and ambush them there. We see Laserbeak mourning over Ravage's body that Soundwave's carrying, and Soundwave tells him that his repairs must wait again. I swear Ravage's resurrection must be made into a big deal because Soundwave has been consistently trying to repair him this entire series. He sends Laserbeak on a mission, but he doesn't reveal what it is. He only hints that it's something he should have done as soon as they woke up. He orders Laserbeak not to return until it's done. I'm betting the mission he's sending Laserbeak on is to find Megatron, and that's how he returns. Remember, right now, he's wandering Earth blind with one arm after escaping Krobala, and he is freaking pissed and wants to kill Starscream badly. I also have the video of that linked at the end of this video. The Autobots arrive at the dam, and Wheeljack asks Optimus what happened to him back in Tacoma. Optimus answers that he doesn't know, but he's feeling like his younger, more angry and vengeful self. This gives more credence to the theory I brought up when he first lost control, that we'll probably see flashbacks of his dark and rageful side in the early days of the Great War. Wheeljack says he'll do more scans when they return to the Ark, but first, they need reinforcements. That with the dam, they should be able to create enough Energon to bring back another Autobot. The Autobot they chose to bring back is Trailbreaker, but before they can bring him back online, the Autobots are attacked by Astrotrain. Before they can return fire, Astrotrain lands and unloads his cargo, Starscream and the Combaticons. Starscream rolling towards Optimus, firing his null ray saying, "Finally, we meet again." Optimus assumes he's talking to him, until Starscream just rolls past him. Who he was talking to was Soundwave and his Decepticons who arrived at the same time. Soundwave says, "Instead of Autobots, we have found a most troublesome insect." Starscream replies, "You will pay for your treachery, Soundwave. My brothers, you know what to do." The Combaticons praise Starscream for healing Brawl instead of himself, and swear to follow him until the end. They charge towards Soundwave, and Onslaught says, "Combaticons, form Bruticus." In the next issue, the Decepticons Combiners face off, Devastator versus Bruticus. And hopefully, we get Soundwave versus Starscream round 2. The most badass looking Transformer in the Energon universe arrives in this video. What's up everyone, James here, and we're back with Skybound Transformers. Make sure to hit that like button. I told you weren't gonna have to wait long. So we pick up here with Thundercracker arriving at the Ark. You would think the Autobots would have some type of defense system or traps to prevent anyone from entering the Ark, but anyways, he came here searching for Skywarp. Remember, in the last video, he found out from Starscream that Soundwave had a hand in Skywarp's current condition. So he abandoned him during their fight with Starscream's brigade. If you didn't see that video, I'll have a link to it below the like button and at the end of this video. Thundercracker finds Skywarp and tries to free him from Talatran 1, but Skywarp says, removal means death. Thundercracker replies, I will find another way to free you from this awful prison. I'm like 70% sure Thundercracker is going to help the Autobots and ask them for their help in freeing Skywarp. Comment below what you guys think is going to happen. From here, we're going to transition to San Juan Islands with Spike Carly, Beachcomber, and RC closing in on Ultra Magnus's trail. RC thanks Beachcomber for helping her track down Magnus, and he responds that he's just happy to be useful in a good way, referring to something that doesn't involve violence. When RC asks him what changed him, why won't he fight, Beachcomber recalls the day the Decepticons attacked the Ark. Remember, we saw this from his point of view in my Shockwave brings Cybertron to Earth video, and we pretty much saw the entire battle in my Megatron escapes from Cobra Law video. Beachcomber goes on to say to RC, it was total chaos, but through the broken hull, I could see stars, galaxies, life. All of a sudden, our small conflict seemed so meaningless. I just couldn't take part in it anymore. Fighting only happens when we choose to. RC replies with an amazing question. She says, but Beachcomber, what if there is no choice? What if it's fight or die? But before Beachcomber can answer, suddenly the team is fired upon. Carly and Spike are thrown into the water. RC goes to save them. Beachcomber is blown back. RC is the only one who realizes it's Ultra Magnus firing on them. He stopped when she calls out to him saying it's her. Ultra Magnus responds, I'm sorry, I couldn't see. I lost myself building my fortress. I was only trying to keep myself safe. We see behind Magnus a makeshift fortress he's created. He is suffering majorly from PTSD. Remember, we last saw him in the Autobots battle against the Decepticons in the Pacific Ocean. He was tortured so badly by Shockwave for centuries that just seeing him again re-traumatized him. So he was essentially so scared of being tortured again by him that he ran from the battlefield in order to go somewhere where he would feel safe and secure. Now from here we're going to transition to Cybertron. The Autobots prepare to head to the Well of Sparks. Alita mentions to Cliffjumper that his eyes hold hope, something she lost long ago. That she's been living a non-stop cycle that's been one foot in front of the other. One more Decepticon head to sludge. Lose a base, gain a base. Gain a friend, lose a friend. On and on. Cliffjumper points out to her that's why Optimus left, and that's why he lost hope for Cybertron. Her response not only confirms she's done with Optimus, but also confirms what I said in the last video, that she feels betrayed by him. And I honestly won't be surprised if she shoots him on sight, because she says, so what? He leaves? That's his solution? He had his chance to save us. We're on our own. Now, in the Decepticon Civil War video, I mentioned that I think an Autobot Civil War might be on the horizon, but what Blue Streak says makes me feel like that might not happen. He chimes in on Cliffjumper and Alita's conversation, and points out to Alita that in the short time Optimus was on Cybertron, he took out Shockwave. He took the head of the Decepticon leadership on the planet, giving them a chance to gain the upper hand. He goes on to say, you talk like no one else has lost someone. We've all lost so many. Now we've got a chance at reinforcements. These remnants of old warriors are a gift, Alita, and so are all our sparks. He then calls on Warpath, Blur, and Blades, and they all say they're ready to head out. When he calls on Alita, she replies, you're right, Blue Streak. Let's take that gift and use it to shoot Decepticons in the face. One cool thing I want to point out here is Blades being here, because he is a member of the combiner team, the Protector Bots, who combine into Defensor. So the question is, where is the rest of the team? I don't think we will see them soon, since if you guys aren't aware, at the end of every Transformers issue, Skybound has something called the Matrix of Lettership, where they answer fan questions. One of the questions asked was, will we see an Autobot combiner team at some point? Daniel Warren Johnson answered with a childhood picture of himself with the captain of the Thunderbirds, an infantry brigade combat team. The theory out there is that he is teasing the aerial bots, who combine into Superion. They are the first Autobot combiner team to appear in the cartoon. If they pop up on Earth, that would make so much sense, since what the Autobots lack right now is aerial support. I mean, they do have Jetfire, but we have no idea what's up with him since he crash landed in the Pacific Ocean. It hasn't been confirmed, at least to my knowledge, whether he's alive or dead. He's kind of been forgotten since that happened. Another thing I want to point out here is about Shockwave. I have to shout out Toikin Dan She Warrior 2846, sorry if I butchered that, and Shinigami Sama H, who both theorized this in the comments of the Optimus Prime ending Shockwave video. Another of the fan questions was if Shockwave was really dead following his battle with Optimus Prime. Danny Warren Johnson only replied, dead or mostly dead. So possibly teasing and confirming that Shockwave is still alive and will be back at some point in the series with his traditional emotionless persona. Now transitioning to the Autobots on Earth, Wheeljack reports to Optimus that Bruticus is moving towards Seattle. When Optimus tries to tell the Autobots to roll out, Wheeljack cuts him off, asking what happened to him back at the dam. Optimus answers that he doesn't know, something came over him. Wheeljack mentions that if he's in the dark about what's going on with him, then they have to get back to the Ark ASAP and make sure he doesn't lose control again. However, Optimus refuses because there's no time to regroup when the Decepticons are putting human lives in danger. He says we must do what we can and hope for the best. Later in Seattle, Starscream's Decepticons, or Brigade I should probably call them, is wreaking havoc. Starscream aboard Astral Train is telling the Decepticons they have to win the race for Energon before Soundwave and his Decepticons. Suddenly, Bruticus is hit with a building by Devastator, with Soundwave riding his shoulder. And what happens next, oh my god, is absolutely hilarious. Starscream asks Soundwave, you think you have what it takes to defeat us, Soundwave? My boy Soundwave answers, actually, yes. Starscream responds, get real, you always were and will always be a I was dying when I first read this because I didn't expect that at all. Starscream cursing was amazing. Danny Warren Johnson got me with this one. As the two combiners battle in the city, the Autobots arrive. Initially, it seems like they're going to try and stop the Decepticons from fighting each other, but Optimus says, Autobots, there's only one thing to do. Prepare yourselves and save as many humans as you can. I love this image of the Autobots rolling out. They each save a group of humans from being the Decepticons' collateral damage. Optimus tells these humans to get into his vehicle, and a kid asks him, who the heck are you? Optimus answers, the name is Optimus Prime. We are here to rescue you. I love this, and I bet you this will be used in future issues and probably mentioned in the G.I. Joe comics that will show humanity not all the robots that are here on Earth are bad. And the other thing I bet is the emblems of their respective factions will be the factor in helping them distinguish between Autobots and Decepticons in the future. From here, we're going to transition back to Cybertron, and this is where it gets so freaking good. In the Decepticon base here at the Well of Sparks, we see another one of the Coneheads, Thrust, standing guard with Ratbat. What's interesting is that we're seeing him now and not when Soundwave was on Cybertron, and Soundwave has never mentioned him. This makes me think that maybe he isn't one of Soundwave's cassettes, or should I say Recordicons, since that's what they're called in this universe. He also doesn't have an animalistic nature like Ravage and Laserbeak. He's having a full-on conversation with Thrust about how antsy he's being about not being where the action is. Let me know what you all think about that. Thrust soon gets his wish because out of nowhere they're attacked by Bluestreak, Blur, and Warpath. What's cool is that Warpath has a skeletal right arm and his chest cannon isn't fully repaired. So this is just more evidence that the Autobots here, besides Energon, barely have any other resources to repair themselves with. Bluestreak initiates the next part of their plan by giving Alita the go-ahead. She and Cliffjumper come bursting in the base in their vehicle modes. Thrust and Ratbat chase after them. This is where we get a badass Alita moment. Cliffjumper brings this to Alita's attention as they drive into the flames here, providing them cover. And she's like, I see them. Get to the hall. I'm right behind you. Ratbat yells, show yourself, usurpers. Alita straight clotheslines him and Thrust at the same freaking time. My god, that was awesome. She literally takes them out in one move. She reaches the hall and asks Cliffjumper if he knows how to work the well, and he answers, my guess is as good as yours. Suddenly, it turns on. Alita asks Cliffjumper, what did you do? And Cliffjumper answers, nothing, it just turned on. What I really like about how Danny Warren Johnson is depicting the Well of Sparks here is that though it's presented to us as something that's mechanical, it does have a mystical nature to it. The computer system of the well says sparks needed for creation event. Cliffjumper installs the canister of sparks into the well and activates the creation event. Eventually, the well's program asks for a secondary form to model. When Alita informs Cliffjumper of this, that's when he calls in Blades, who comes flying in and unloads what's left of Carly's smashed van into the well. Remember, it ended up on Cybertron back when Carly drove it into the middle of the Autobots and Decepticons battle on Earth, and Devastator had kicked it and Cliffjumper through the space bridge. The well completes the scan of Carly's van, and then the well explodes with energy. After the creation process ends, a voice calls out to Cliffjumper from the smoke created by the well, and says, Cliffjumper, we recognize. No, I recognize you from ages past. Cliffjumper replies, my new friend, tell me, what do the combined sparks of my clan call themselves? What is your name? The voice responds, my name is Shredhead. Shredhead looks freaking amazing. My god. Definitely without a doubt the coolest looking Transformer so far in the Energon universe. I just don't know how you can say it's not. It's like if He-Man and Shredder combined and then became a Transformer. This is what I imagine they would look like. Oh my god. My fellow Beyonders. My fellow Transformers, brothers and sisters. This issue of Skybound Transformers is absolutely incredible. There's so much that happens. God, I'm so hyped. Before we get started, make sure you hit that like button. Okay, we're getting right into it. So this picks up right where we left off in the last video, on Cybertron. If you haven't watched the previous video, you'll find a link to it below the like button and at the end of this video. While Alita and Cliffjumper were inside the Well of Sparks bringing Shredhead to life, Warpath, Blur, and Bluestreak are outside of it holding the Decepticons back. Currently, they're pinned down by the Seekers, Hotlink and Bitstream, and the Beast, Carnivac. It's cool to see more obscure Transformers make an appearance in this series. Bluestreak is calling Alita for backup, until suddenly, the Decepticons toss a grenade in their position, and they get blown back. Carnivac transforms into his beast form, and just when he's about to feed on Bluestreak, out of nowhere, Shredhead, in their vehicle mode, which remember is Carly's van, slams right into him. Remember, Shredhead is a combination of partial sparks that Cliffjumper had collected that were the remains of his clan. So they're not a singular being. So I'll be referring to them as they and them and their throughout the video. One thing I need to point out here that's so freaking cool and such a coincidence is the thumbnail I used in the last video of Shredhead. I titled it Let's Shred because in my own headcanon that would be their cool saying. And literally right here, they say to the Decepticons, you guys ready to shred? Like, it's so badass. Carnivac begs for help, and Shredhead just stabs their sword into his head. Bitstream tries to shoot him, but Shredhead immediately slices off his arms. Hotlink tries to beg for his life, and Shredhead is like, no shot, and wastes no time and slices Hot Link in half. Like, my god, this is how you debut a new Transformer. Danny Warren Johnson has knocked it out of the park with this one. Shredhead is just coming across as super dominant, and I absolutely love it. Another thing that Danny Warren Johnson does here that's cool is he's making Shredhead the beacon of hope for the Autobots on Cybertron, because Blue Streak is just shocked with how easily they took out the Decepticons here. He says, "By Primus's hand." Alita replies, "I know, Blue Streak. I think we may have turned the tide." And for the first time since she's appeared, Alita smiles. Okay, from here we're going to transition to Earth with RC, Beachcomber, Carly, and Spike camping in Ultra Magnus's makeshift fortress. Through Magnus's and RC's conversation, we learn even more about the trauma Shockwave has inflicted on him. While admiring Earth's beauty staring at the moon, he mentions to RC how it reminds him of when they used to do the same on Cybertron, looking up at the great beyond. But he can't appreciate it because Shockwave ruined it all. He can only see the unknown, the dark now. Even when RC tells him that Shockwave is gone, he can't hurt him anymore, Magnus responds that it's too late. Shockwave's damage to him is done. He now knows the true depths of what one Cybertronian can do to another, and it's hard for him to believe in anything anymore now. When RC says, "You can't let what has happened in the past dictate what is to come, my friend," Magnus kind of brushes it off by replying, "That's easy for you to say." That's when Carly chimes in, and it's so fitting because she has gone through a lot and can connect with Magnus's pain and trauma more than RC. She says, "Spike and I lost our dads, our home, and everything I knew about the world is gone. You're a huge metal man with guns, and I'm a small, squishy wannabe artist. Who would come up with two beings more different? But inside, we're more alike than you realize. Our shared pain brings us together. No matter how adrift you feel, you're not alone, Ultra Magnus." This, at least for the moment, shakes Magnus out of his despair, his feeling of hopelessness. However, this feel-good moment the group is sharing together is short-lived, because Magnus senses something is closing in on his fortress, which is a group of soldiers here. And Magnus whips out this big freaking gun and tells everyone to get down. And even one of the soldiers here is shocked at the sight of this and is like, "Oh shit." And Magnus just starts blasting everywhere, and the soldiers are getting blown to bits. RC tries to stop him, pointing out that those are humans he's shooting at. Carly calls out to RC, and her and Magnus look at Carly and see she's been hit with a dart right in her neck. This, along with the troops and the attack helicopters here, makes Magnus go even more on the offensive and freak out, because he's taking it as them being attacked. So it's triggering his PTSD even more. He says, "They want to enslave us. He wants to enslave me." Magnus destroys one of the helicopters here. Seeing this happen, the other helicopters here unleash an array of rockets and blow the fortress straight to hell. After the explosion, the troops here investigate the smoking remains of the fortress, and we see they have the star emblem of G.I. Joe on their uniforms, which is crazy and confirms for us that they're unaware of the different factions within the Transformers and are viewing all of them as a threat. And remember the good deed I mentioned of Optimus and the Autobots currently saving the lives of civilians in Seattle? That's probably not going to change anything in the eyes of the government anymore, because they'll say, "Yeah, you saved a bunch of civilians from your own destructive kind, and one of your own killed a bunch of our troops. So you're still a threat to us." As she recovers from the blast, RC sees this G.I. Joe unit take Carly's and Ultra Magnus's unconscious bodies. This is kind of sad because Magnus just was freed from Shockwave's centuries-long imprisonment and now will be a prisoner of the US government and most likely will be experimented on. We also don't know if Beachcomber and Spike escaped the explosion unscathed. Now in Seattle, and this gets super nuts, the fight between Starscream's brigade and Soundwave's Decepticons is still playing out, while Optimus Prime and the Autobots are trying to save as many civilians as they can. As Bruticus and Devastator are fighting, Starscream on Astrotrain is providing air support, firing on Devastator. Now in the Marvel Universe within the X-Men, Colossus and Wolverine have this awesome tag team move called the Fastball Special, where Colossus takes Wolverine into his hands and hurls him forward, like a baseball pitcher throwing a fastball. We get a version of that here with Soundwave and Rumble, and it's amazing. God, I love Soundwave in this series. He sits atop a nearby building and says, "You have only one arm, Rumble, but one is all you shall need." He launches Rumble at Astrotrain and he takes out one of his wings. As they fall, Starscream calls out to the Combaticons. He and Astrotrain crash atop the seemingly tallest skyscraper here in Seattle. Bruticus immediately begins to climb the skyscraper. Soundwave orders Devastator to follow, and something insane happens. Once Bruticus gets to the top and tries to save Starscream, Devastator grabs him and yells, "There can be only one combiner, and that combiner's name is Devastator." Devastator launches off the skyscraper while grabbing Bruticus's neck, delivering an RKO. Like, holy hell. I was not expecting a Highlander reference and a wrestling move at the same time. Optimus, shocked at the sight of this, sees them plummeting and is like, "Primus, save us." The combiners hit the ground and a massive explosion occurs. Honestly, this explosion should have been a lot worse. Like, it should have been the combination of a nuke going off and an earthquake happening at the same time. Now, Starscream versus Soundwave round 2 continues, because Starscream, seeing Bruticus is down for the count, starts panicking, saying, "No, why can't anything go my way?" Soundwave replies, knocking him back, "Because you are stupid, Starscream," just perfectly adding insult to injury, and he doesn't end there. Soundwave, pointing his blaster to Starscream's head, continues and says, "You're guided by fear, hate, selfishness. You cannot even move yourself without the Earthling's technology. What a pathetic end for you." It's the very word pathetic that enrages Starscream, giving him a second win. He deflects the blaster fire in the nick of time and shockingly begins to beat down Soundwave, headbutting him and ripping off his chest plate and grabbing Ravage's body while saying, "Pathetic? Look who's talking. At least I'm not the one obsessed with their tape collection." At that moment, a voice interrupts and says, "Starscream, Soundwave, enough." Yes, he's finally arrived. The scourge of Cybertron, the slag maker, and true leader of the Decepticons. When Starscream tries to ask the question how he survived, Megatron immediately cuts him off and demands he be silent. Megatron then grabs Ravage's body. Initially, I was thinking he was going to use his body to restore himself, but no, Megatron uses his own spark to restore Ravage, rewarding Soundwave for his loyalty. Soundwave kneels before him and says, "My master." Now, Starscream tries to get Astrotrain to get him out of there because he knows he's in trouble. Astrotrain, staring at Megatron, responds no, because this is his opportunity to take his revenge. Megatron says to Soundwave, "Get up, Soundwave. There is much work to be done." At that moment, it seems like he's looking down the skyscraper at Optimus, and when Optimus sees him and the two make eye contact, he says, "Autobots, retreat." Hear me out here. I think Megatron is going to hold off on taking out Starscream, because he had a perfect opportunity to just kill him right then and there, but didn't. What if his strategy is to unite the Decepticons, restore himself and all of them, and then just focus on conquering Earth and taking out the Autobots? That is a very, very scary scenario for the Autobots. because they don't have anything at all right now that can take on the combined might of 2 combiners, all of the Decepticons here, and a very pissed off Megatron. Even Optimus, the strongest among them, who has Megatron's fusion cannon, isn't at 100% because of everything he's got going on. He's losing control of his body. So the Autobots need backup, and they need it yesterday. Unfortunately for right now, we won't see what happens next in the story for a bit, because we're getting something awesome. The next issue will be a new story arc focusing on Megatron's origin, and I am so excited for that. In the meantime though, if you want to check out Megatron's origin in the IDW universe, I'll have a link to my full story video on that series at the end of the video. It's one of the first Transformers series I covered on the channel. Well, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it a lot. Comment below your thoughts and subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, check out that video of Megatron's origin, or check out another Transformers video that I also have right here. Other than that, have an awesome day, and always remember every day to go beyond. See you later, Beyonders.